Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, that cup of tea's hit the spot. As promised, two live matches watched today, two match reviews, and a live stream. So, obviously, yesterday I was discussing the Major League Baseball lockout, and I did a video on how long I thought it would last. And quite frankly, the answer is how long's a piece of string? How long would the Major League Baseball lockout last? Until either side are willing. Hello, yes. Until either side are willing to concede some ground on some of their positions and compromise. I can't see any talks gaining traction anytime soon. So that'll be interesting. Yesterday's live stream, it was mentioned that Premier League clubs, or at least a handful of them, are against the proposals put forward by the recommendations of an independent regulatory body. There were 47 proposals put forward, and some clubs are digging their heels and saying no. Got to have a cup of tea. So that in itself is a very interesting dynamic. Now, obviously, we've seen all the FA Cup shocks and all some very entertaining games this weekend so far. But there are some far bigger stories in the sports world dominating the headlines right now. Obviously, with Yorkshire County Cricket Club having 16 members of their staff, including their entire coaching staff, basically sacked or resigned from their positions. How will that affect English cricket going forward? Because a large proportion of the squad are Yorkshire players. Does that put added pressure on Joe Root as England captain in this Ashes series? Verstappen wins in Saudi Arabia, level on points with Verstappen. Chelsea women beat Arsenal in the delayed Women's FA Cup final 3-0 at Wembley. Rangnick is happy with his win over Palace. Villa come from behind to beat Leicester. Spurs have beaten Norwich to go fifth, but face season of hard work, says Conte. So there's a lot of football. The Russians have beaten Croatia in the tennis to claim a third Davis Cup title. Leeds get a draw against Brentford. Leicester are top of the Rugby Union Premiership, 9 points clear. England are yet to name their Ashes squad. That's interesting. Now there's an article here about Jude Bellingham questions referee appointment for Borussia Dortmund versus Bayern Munich. England midfielder Jude Bellingham questioned the appointment of Felix Zoya as the referee for Dortmund's defeat by Munich in the 3-2 match. Zoya rejected Dortmund's appeals for a penalty before giving their rivals a spot kick for a match that was handball. He was banned for 6 months back in 2005 after being involved in the match fixing scandal. So that is very, very interesting that a referee who has been found guilty of being involved in match fixing is still allowed to referee at the highest level. So that's a very interesting one. Lots of FA Cup news. Lots of FA Cup news. There's obviously news has obviously come out about what happened at the Euro 2020 final with the disorder. 6,000 ticketless fans tried to get in. So there's all sorts of things coming out about that, which doesn't paint the final in a positive light. Talking about the Yorkshire situation with the cricket, Director of Cricket Martin Moxon, Head Coach Andrew Gale, and all members of the coaching staff are among 16 people to have left the club around the racism scandal. Either they were sacked or they resigned. But the former captain and head coach Andrew Gale is taking legal action against the club about their decision to sack him. Apparently, the players knew about it before he did, and he will be fighting the decision legally. So there's a lot going on. This is going to continue, I think, to cause problems, I believe, Uh, within English cricket, obviously we've got the Ashes coming up. Still yet to name a test side for the Ashes, test squad. Does this situation in English cricket put added pressure on the test side? I think it does. I think it definitely does. Um, so we'll see what any further outcomes are of any further investigations. The fact that Gale, the former coach and former player, is now taking legal action against the team is very important. This scandal is not going to go away quietly. This is going to rumble on and on and on, and be the longer it goes on, the more damaging it is for the sport, in my opinion. Um, so we'll see what happens there. I wouldn't call me the boffin of all sports. I wouldn't say I'm knowledgeable every single sport, but some of the big sports headlines coming out at the moment, in my opinion, do involve corruption, mismanagement, and money, basically, and scandal. So when I'm talking about Major League Baseball, well, I'm not a massive fan of baseball, and of course, those who follow the channel know that I don't really cover baseball much. I have done a fair share of videos, but it's not one of my top sports. Um, this lockout, how long will it last? And I know baseball fans do watch the channel and they ask me questions about should I do some more Major League Baseball videos, and I have. Unfortunately, it's not for the reasons that I should be. I should be looking at the history, the success of teams, the greatest players. Unfortunately, the current situation with Major League Baseball uh, has given me a lot of video content for the wrong reasons. God, I love a good cup of tea. And as I said in the video I did yesterday, like how long will the lockout last for? As long as the league and the Players Association are not willing to move from their current position on what they want, and the only proposal put forward that is a talking point is expanding the playoffs, I can't see this lockout ending anytime soon. And with the backdrop of the pandemic and the issues faced last year with the resumption to play talks going down to the wire and a disagreement over the schedule, the length of schedule, the condensed schedule, how many games will be played, how much salary will be retained by teams or deferred. They were already going into these negotiations in bad faith. The fact that constantly they keep extending the CBA without really altering any of the problems that have been in place for 25 years is just really bad governance, really bad management for all parties. It doesn't. No one comes out of it looking good. And if this does drag on into the next pre-season and into next season, you've got Major League Soccer and now Major League Rugby as an expanding sport, a minor league, admittedly, so it's not on the same level as the MLS. But you've got a Major League and Major League Soccer and Major League Rugby that play in the summer predominantly, so the same time of year as baseball, who could pick up fans. Definitely tap into the frustration of the baseball fans feeling let down by the players and the owners. That is a real possibility that baseball could bleed fans to other sports. You're going to have your hardcore fans that will continue to support the sport. You're going to have your casual fans who obviously buy into the sport but are willing to spend their money elsewhere. And with the current way of the economics, MLS and Major League Rugby games are far cheaper to go and see. So if you have that accessibility to go see a game, it's cheaper. They're wanting to grow their fan base and grow their product. Prime opportunity for the MLS and the MLR to expand their fan base and their product and grow the games, grow the sports. Far, very dangerous. Well, yeah, sometimes you do need a new voice in the dressing room, but how long is it going to? Well, Solskjaer had the same thing when he was interim manager. The players responded very, very quickly to his appointment, and then as soon as he went full time, the form just dropped off like it didn't even exist. So you do get that new manager bounce. You do. That tends to happen within the first couple of weeks. I mean, Eddie Howe's now got his first win for Newcastle, so that new manager bounce where performances improve initially with the new manager nine times out of 10 generally happens. The effort put in by players, even if they are losing games, will still improve. So while there's been with Carrick's 2 games in charge and now Ranić now getting his visa application sorted, now actually taking charge of a game, the new manager bounce does have an effect. How long that honeymoon period lasts, we will wait and see. But yes, definitely getting a win is important. However, it's how long they can sustain that and what happens going forward. Will the results massively, drastically improve? Conte said it's going to take a lot of work at Tottenham to turn that team around. And we've seen a lot of managerial changes in all the leagues this season. And so we'll see what happens with the appointment. We'll see what happens in the transfer window. I can see a massive squad overhaul in January and in the summer. I can see that happening. I can see United spending further money. They've spent a lot of money since Ferguson left, and it hasn't brought as much success as they were predicting. Their long term plan hasn't worked out. They've had a lot of managers now, so it does raise questions about the structures of the club behind the scenes, the scouting, the player development, the youth setup as well. The youth setup has been less successful in recent years with players coming through. Bearing in mind, 50% of the players to play for Man United have played in their youth system, so that is the highest ratio I think in English football. Um, oh, that was a good cup of tea. So yeah, question marks have to be asked about their current youth policy, recruitment, scouting, training, the squad makeup, the structures behind the scenes in the front office. A lot of questions do have to be asked about the structure, internal structures of the club. There are going to have to be structural changes. There is no doubt on that with Man United. You can say that about a lot of clubs, to be fair. A lot of clubs, there's definitely got to be structural changes. Um, how much of management is players' motivation as opposed to tactics and system? I think it's a bit of everything, really. I think the best managers generally are very pragmatic and have multiple systems, and generally are more man managers. I think are the better ones, the ones that actually are a bit more hands-on, that good rapport with the players. The strict disciplinarian kind of manager is long gone now. That doesn't work. The hairdryer treatment doesn't work in the modern game. In a lot of sports, it just doesn't work. Um, the issue is, but what I've seen with the FA Cup this weekend is a lot of young managers coming through at the lower levels of the game. Several managers on display today are very young, and have several of the managers involved in this weekend's games retired young, got their coaching badges, stayed involved in the game at the lower levels, which is important. It's a great nursery for not only players but also coaches. Um, However, the managerial turnover and the length of time a manager stays in their position, the average length of time is getting shorter and shorter. So I always say this: a club that regularly changes manager isn't as successful as they would be with managerial stability. Um, and so, and that's just general trend. Some clubs do buck that trend where they just constantly, are successful regardless of how many managers they have over a 10-year period. Um, the one thing about Manchester United and Arsenal to a certain extent in years past is what they stuck with Ferguson or they stuck with Wenger over long periods of time, even when they were having a down season where they weren't winning trophies, but they were still qualifying for Europe. They didn't make reactionary decisions going, well, we're having a bit of an off season this year. Oh, we're going to change the manager. They stuck with the process. They stuck with the style of football they wanted to play. They stuck with the youth development. Um, and it paid off for Arsenal towards the end of Wenger's time and the beginning of the Arteta era. Unai Emery was a bit of a misstep. Um, but I think Arteta is the right guy to take Arsenal forward because he is younger. He's a bit more affable with the players, as in he's a bit more at their level. He's a bit more of a players manager because in theory he could still be playing in the lower levels of football. To be fair, he still could easily lace up his boots and play 90 minutes. I have no doubt on that. He brings newer ideas. having learnt from Guardiola and also being at Everton as well with Roberto Martinez. He's learnt from good managers who've won trophies. He's won trophies himself now. The Solskjaer situation, it's more to do with the squad makeup, in my opinion. I do honestly believe that with players like Paul Pogba, Cavani isn't happy with how things are going, and of course he's a veteran player, and of course he was bought on a free, and he's been a very good signing for United. Um, there's already been some unrest with disappointment. There's clearly issues with some players lacking confidence, other players with rather big egos, throwing their weight around the dressing room. Clearly, they'd stopped playing for Mourinho. They'd stopped. Well, Van Gaal was sacked because apparently the football was boring. It was effective. They were more competitive under Van Gaal than they were under Mourinho, and they were more competitive on Mourinho than they were under Solskjaer. Um, and so that's a long period of slow decline. And again, the ownership made a silly decision getting rid of Van Gaal. I think Van Gaal, his track record speaks for itself. He is a pragmatic manager. He works with what he has available. Um, he's not the easiest guy. He's a hard taskmaster. So is Mourinho. They took it. They tried to copy the Ferguson mantra with hard taskmasters who expect players to pull their weight. They don't accept passengers in their squads, and unfortunately, there's a few too many passengers in the Man United system. Um, Arsenal, they're trying to play a style of football, but they just don't have the pieces for, which is a problem. And you could argue Arsenal's transfer policy and scouting hasn't been great either. These are two clubs which, to show how good Wenger and Ferguson were at those clubs, it's very hard to replace someone who's been in charge for that long in an organisation. You always have that vacuum, that power void, and what they've done with these appointments is they've thrown in basically that they've tried to sort of, I don't know, bodge their way through a little bit. I don't think we'll see a manager like a Wenger or a Ferguson again. I really don't. I think football now has gone to the results matter, win now mentality for a lot of clubs, and a lot of clubs aren't in that position to win now. So, while the new manager effect, you always get that new manager bounce with that fresh voice in the dressing room and fresh ideas. How long will that honeymoon period last? Will they go on a run of form for the rest of the season? Um, I would say the pitches have something to do with it. Looking at some of the surfaces that were played on this weekend, they've held up very, very well considering the amount of rain and snow that we've had across the UK. 20 years ago, some of those pitches would have been mud baths, and it really would have been a proper old school FA Cup tie. So even at the lower levels, the pitches have massively improved. The investment in playing infrastructure, a lot more defenders now are more skilled. Admittedly, yes, there's definitely more emphasis on playing out from the back. And the sweeper keeper, which I'm not overly sold on. I think that's a very dangerous mantra to expect every single goalkeeper to be a universal sweeper keeper product. It doesn't work that way. On saying that, yes, the main difference between modern football and football 20 years ago, we don't really have those dominant, feisty, gnarly midfielders anymore. We don't have the Robbie Savages, the Vieiras, the Roy Keanes that we had. Now we don't have those nasty kind of players that have a bit of a gnarly streak in them. The game is lacking those kind of characters, those the hard men as I call it. So the game has definitely got softer, and I say that considering some of the matches this weekend we had some pretty feisty challenges in them. The way the game has evolved and some of the rule changes that before were seen as decent tackles now are fouls, the speed of the game. I'm not overly sold that the quality is as good. I think the quality was better 20 years ago because you had to use your skill to get out of a situation. Now there's players who are showboating because they have that skill and they don't need to. Whereas before you had to use your skill and your technique to get out of a position where you've been closed out by three or four players in the midfield. So your Zidans then use their skill to get themselves out of trouble, whereas now players are using their skill to showboat, unnecessarily use their skill. When a quick pass and move would do the trick, they've got all these step overs and back heels and stuff, which are completely unnecessary. So, I'm, but yes, definitely the speed of the game, the physicality of the game has changed. The average squad ages are now younger. I'm noticing a lot of squads have less veteran players in them and less dominant players in them. Um, and so when it comes to international level, I'm looking at some of these squads going, I'm not sold on this, the quality level of players. I think that's why Italy won the Euros is they still had those veteran presence in key positions, whereas England's youngest squad at the Euros, very inexperienced, very naive, um, and that showed up in that final. Um, but we are seeing an explosion of a glut of talent now coming through across all the European leagues. But I think football's missing some of those gnarly midfielders who would leave a mark on you, and those centre backs that would take no prisoners. But the game has evolved so much. Of course, the diving and the going down softly has got into the game, which is one of the reasons why in America it took so long to get a proper foothold. And now, obviously, the foothold's there, and the game and the league is expanding rapidly. And of course, with Major League Baseball having this lockout, which could go on indefinitely, Major League, the MLS, could definitely take advantage of the disenfranchised baseball fans in some of those markets and attract new fans to their league and Major League Rugby as well. Um, there's going to be some very disenfranchised sports fans who are baseball fans who will happily watch another sport, who will turn their back on Major League Baseball, which has got an aging fan base, a shrinking fan base, and massive wage inflation that's far higher than any other sport. Um, so uh, it's a very interesting time for football globally with the World Cup. And this World Cup coming up in 12 months' time, I have obviously everyone's got their reservations about it. It is going to massively impact the domestic league seasons in Europe. Admittedly, the winter breaks, it varies from league to league when they put in their winter break, but they're going to have to condense their schedules. We may see no FA Cup replays next season in all rounds, which the FA have been thinking about getting rid of FA Cup replays altogether um, from the first round onwards. Um, Coaches are now, raising concerns about, the amount of games being played um, by players, and so therefore player welfare is coming into it. And I think there's one Spanish player who played over 60 games last season, or in a calendar year or something, but not even including his internationals, who was in the Spain squad at the Euros. So that's clearly a massive concern. This virus pandemic isn't going anywhere anytime soon, even though this current variant is less fatal. I don't think any fatalities have been recorded. Um, so the virus itself is weakening, but is more transmissible, which is generally how viruses work. It's good science. So there could be travel restrictions. We know with the Olympics, with the Winter Olympics, for example, if you test positive, that's a 3-week quarantine period. So the NHL isn't even sure if it's going to go to the Winter Olympics. So in regards to the Qatar World Cup and football, it's going to be a very disrupted next 12 months. We may see, FA Cup replays disappear altogether. I think it's probably going to become permanent, which may actually harm the finances of the lower league clubs and the non-league clubs who are heavily reliant on that replay revenue. If they do earn a replay, it's a massive cash win for these smaller clubs that rely heavily on gate receipts, and if they get on the TV, it's a big thing for them. Um, we are going to see a lot of fixture congestion next season, and when you've got Bielsa, of the Leeds manager, coming out and raising concerns about the amount of games players are having to play, and he is concerned about the welfare of his team and players in general, that does obviously raise the concern about the direction the sport is taking. And other sports have also decided to limit the amount of games, especially rugby union, are limiting the amount of games players play. The NHL, normally it's a 3-game week. The NHL has, they're now having a 4 to 5-game week to get their schedule done because of the Olympics. You think players do more skill moves and tricks now? More, definitely more. I don't see any ESA type roulettes anymore. Might come down to less gnarly defenders. The pass and move game has always been there. Always has been there. But when you had your Zidanes and your Pirlos and your Dave and Beckham had a fair bit of skill, and um, you know Nick Barbie had a fair bit of skill as well. When you have those midfielders who are using their technique to get out of trouble, that's a far better view than when you've got players just showboating. Ronaldo was very guilty of that early in his career. Very, um, very guilty of showboating early on in his career. Um, but yeah, players like Iniesta, who had to, with the high press, which is the best way to stop the tiki-taki style of play, um, yeah, they had to use their skill to get out of trouble. Um, because with the tiki-taki style of play, it's a very slow-paced style of play, and it involves on passing and moving, and moving the opposition around. And when the play breaks down, that's where Spain and Barcelona were exposed at times, and that's why they lost the occasional game um, to an underdog team that actually got the press and their tactics right. Um, so those type of players that rely on a certain system where it is pass and move, if you've got a high press and those gnarly midfielders who are going to leave a mark on you, they use their skill for the right reasons to get out of trouble. Um, Now there's too many players showboating, too many silly step overs. Keep things simple. Simple is very effective. Um, Even the great Brazil side of the 1970 World Cup, it was a pass and move, free flowing play where they could slow the pace down and speed it up. But the skill they used wasn't for showboating. It was literally for positioning the ball, positioning the body, getting themselves out of trouble, making space where there wasn't any. And if you watch the England Brazil game from 1970, but if you have, I believe it is on YouTube, there was only one goal in that game, and England are just as technically good, if not slightly more physical than Brazil, and it is possibly the game of the century. Um, it has been voted one of the best games of all time. The West Germany Italy semi final that goes to extra time really is a slog, um, which contributed to Italy losing that final because they were just knackered. This is back in 1970. Remember, fitness has come a long way. The pitches have improved massively. Altitude training is now a thing. Diet is far more important. Um, just watch the 1970 World Cup, and if you can get any of the matches in full replay, the England Brazil game is possibly one of the best games ever seen. It's always been voted very highly in one of the best games of all time. And when you see that goal by Jairzinho with Pele just controlling the ball, rolling it to him almost instinctively, after I believe it was Tosh with the cross, and he does do a complete 360, he completely rotates his body. That's not them showboating. That is them having to use their skill to basically beat equal opposition, world champions, the two best teams in the world at that point. And that Brazil side had to play that way to win, and that England side pushed Brazil all the way. And Pele said Gordon Banks' save was possibly the best save of all time, and that has been regularly voted one of the top 5 saves of all time. Gordon Banks' save from Pele at point blank range and putting it on the post, and it rolls up the post. The 1974 Dutch side and the 78 Dutch sides, the total football, again, the Cruyff turn. That's Cruyff getting himself out of trouble. The Cruyff turn. I believe he did against Bulgaria in the group stage of 74, and that was his trademark. I'm getting out of trouble here. I'm being pushed into a position where I can't affect the play by getting the ball into the box or link up play with another player. I've got to make space, so I'm going to have to just do the Cruyff turn. That's not showboating. That is Cruyff making space for himself to then link up with whoever the midfielder or striker is, or the oncoming player, to then continue the attack. The Argentina side of 78, that was just pure aggression from them. But they had a lot of skill with them as well. But that is really pure aggression, where they are using their energy and their high press and their aggressive style of play to get the result. But there's a fair bit of skill in there. The French side of 78 and 82 was a very technically gifted side. And that you could argue they were very entertaining in 78, and they didn't get out of the group stage. They were probably the most gifted team ever to take the field to the World Cup. The Maradona documentary. I was fortunate enough to actually see him play on the TV, never in person. So I witnessed the last 5-6 years of his career, and so I'm fortunate enough in that aspect. And by then, obviously, his addiction, his drug and alcohol problems, his weight issues had taken their toll. So he was not the player he was when he was a teenager in his early 20s, which is when I think he's at his peak. And that's before the 86 World Cup is when he's peaked. After that is a slow decline, then it becomes very rapid. But again, that second goal against England in the World Cup quarter final in '86 and the goal against Belgium in the semi final, he's not showboating. That is him using his skill and his ability to get out of trouble, where he picks up the ball when he goes on that run. Um, yeah, yeah, and that's I think the semi-final goal against Belgium is possibly where he completely rotates his body because he's mostly left foot. He's left foot orientated. He's got a very weak right foot, but he has to do that to get the power and the slingshot motion with his technique to score the goal. Just watch the Diego Maradona '86 semi-final against Belgium. Better goal than the goal against England. Um, yeah, I mean, look, I was a baby. I was 6 months old at the time, so I can't comment on Italia '90 personally. The first tournament I actually watched was Euro '92 and then World Cup '94, and I have limited memories of those tournaments. I do remember some of the games, but yeah, there was yeah, that was Italian '90 was possibly the best World Cup for just the fans getting involved and bringing in a new era of football with the game, getting more professional and the Premier League, the dawn of the Premier League, the Champions League was on the horizon. So the old European Cup was about to be renamed the Champions League. There was a lot of changes coming to football within a couple of years. And yeah, within 2 years, we had the Champions League, we had the Premier League, we had more money in the game. The game was on a crossroads where it was about to change for better and for worse. Um, I know you're an American, but the '94 World Cup is possibly the worst World Cup I've ever seen. I think a lot of football fans would or soccer fans, depending where you are in the world, would agree with that. Um, but it ushered in the MLS. Part of the reason why the US were given the rights to host the '94 World Cup was the MLS was part of the legacy, and it nearly went horribly wrong. It was saved by David Beckham, and David Beckham and a few other players following in his footsteps in the next few years, going over to the MLS and transforming the game in the US. Um, but yeah, the this is where I think football lost its way in the mid 2000s. I believe between the '80s and the mid 2000s, mostly in the '90s, I think football was at its peak. I think you look at the Ballon d'Or winners then to the Ballon d'Or winners now. It wasn't a popularity contest back in the '80s and '90s and the early 2000s for Ballon d'Or. It was literally this is the best all-round player. The Golden Glove, the Golden Boot, all those other awards. This is the best goal scorer. This is the best goalkeeper. This is the best player in that position. Now it's a popularity contest. So question marks have been raised about how you get selected to win the Ballon d'Or and the voting. So definitely, the remit of what constitutes a Ballon d'Or nomination. Messi's admitted, yeah, no, I shouldn't have won the last 2 years. Ronaldo is admitted he shouldn't be in the top 10. So why would FIFA schedule Italy versus Argentina and Napoli? It was already scheduled as that semi-final. The fixtures past the group stage, the stadium was already worked out for the knockout stages. So depending on how the group stages go, Italy or Argentina may not have met in the semi-finals, or may have probably met in the final if it was a different, had they done better in the group stages because Argentina didn't win their first game, they lost to Cameroon. If they win that first game, they don't meet in that semi-final. They're in different semi-final brackets. So Argentina would have met West Germany in the semi-final, or England, and then West Germany or England would have met Italy in the other semi-final. It's just how the group stage is played out. That has a massive impact on the first knockout rounds and going forward with the bracket. So the Napoli stadium was already earmarked as one of the semi-final stadiums. I forget what the other semi-final. I think the other semi-final was played in Turin, if I remember correctly, where Gaza cried. So Turin and Napoli were chosen as the two semi-final locations before the tournament even kicked off. The fact that Argentina and Italy both made it to the semi-finals on that side of the bracket was down to the group stages. If Argentina win their first game against Cameroon, we're not having this discussion. It would have been a different World Cup. The knockout stages would have been different, and hypothetically, they could have met in the final in Rome at the Stadio Olimpico. So that one is a difficult one, but the scheduling is already done before the tournament kicks off. They know where the final and the semi, all the knockout games are going to be played. The group stages are already formatted before the tournament kicks off. But if it was a lose lose, but also a win win for the TV audience as well, because that was one of the highest rated um, viewerships of all time in Italy. It broke viewership records. Again, the group stage. Argentina may have lost every game in the group stage and not got through to the knockout stages. Italy, it does actually depend. Your knockout stages are dependent on your group stage form. That's how the World Cup works. So it was always, a possibility. Yes, the organisers weren't aware of how the fans were going to react. They would not have been aware of what the fans were going to how they were going to react. That's the joy of knockout football. But again, that's in hindsight. There could have been a bit of coincidence there. But the Italia 90 ranks highly for TV viewership. Some of the highest TV ratings in Italy and Argentina and England of all time. Considering the population size, the amount of people who actually own, TV sets. Back then, we didn't have the Sky Sports and the Fox Sports and all the satellite broadcasters that we do now. The US obviously was ahead in the game in that sense, but basically in the UK at the time, I think we had 4 channels on terrestrial TV. If you had enough money to pay for cable or satellite, you get the American feed. You can get obviously more channels, but we had 4 terrestrial free-to-air channels at the time: BBC One, BBC Two, ITV, and Channel 4. So we only had 4 TV channels to choose from until 1992. Or 1991, that we didn't have the TV networks we have today. A lot of the TV networks we take for granted now didn't exist 30 years ago, 31 years ago. So for the record TV numbers that World Cup had at the time, considering the amount of TV channels available to the the public, massive TV figures. And now that we have much broader media, now we have YouTube, we have streaming services, websites that are linked into the TV rights deals, various sports, cable, satellite, the internet, globalized sport now. It's completely transformed, which is why when it comes to media deals and TV rights deals, they're worth so much money now. More people have access to more media services than we did before. The internet has really opened up so many possibilities. Yes, there's a lot of wrong with the internet, but it has opened up so many more broadcast possibilities. Every game that I've watched this weekend, I've watched online on the website equivalent of the TV. But younger people like you and me, I haven't watched the TV. Hasn't been plugged in for a year and a half. I've not watched telly officially, like on the TV, for a year and a half. My next door neighbour, his TV's plugged in, not to the aerial, it's plugged into his internet router. So again, we have not watched traditional TV, we've watched via the internet. So when we're watching the Euros final and the knockout games, we're watching on the internet. So the way we absorb our media now is different. So when we're talking about leagues like the NHL having TV rights deal, the NRL, AFL, Premier League, Major League Baseball obviously has got its lockouts, and that's going to affect its TV deal when it comes to negotiation. The way we are accessing our media is different. So the media rights deals are changing. And traditional TV, we still see massive viewership figures when it's free to air accessible. In Europe, I don't know about the US because obviously that's the networks and it's a different media setup. But over here in Europe, we have the free to air terrestrial channels, the basically the easy accessible, and then you have the subscription services. where you have to pay per view or get a subscription TV, and then you have obviously the internet, which everyone has. Um, so the way we absorb our media here in Europe is different to the US and Canada. Um, so public broadcaster to cable. Um, our systems are different. Um, but when sport is on free to air TV, the viewership goes through the roof. It's not really crazy at all. I don't really miss mainstream TV. There's not a lot on the TV that I enjoy watching anyway. My friends set me up a guest account on Netflix. Um, I'm the only reason why I would watch the telly is for the sport. Literally for sport. That's it. That's the only reason I would really watch TV now. There's nothing on the TV right now, TV series wise or film wise. Most films I can watch online. I've probably got them on DVD or Blu-ray. I I've no interest in a lot of things that are on TV these days. A lot of programs I used to watch that. Okay, I watched them. I enjoy them. I will watch them again casually if um, let's say I'm going to visit my mum's. I'll probably watch Forged in Fire. It's one of my or that's one of my favourite programs. Haven't seen it for 2 years, but it's one of my favourite programs because I'm always interested in engineering and things like that. But the only reason why I watch the TV is for the sport. That is the only reason why I watch TV. 1.5 years is not that crazy. I don't miss TV really. And in my last apartment, I didn't watch TV for 6 months. I only plugged my Xbox into it. So again, I didn't really feel like I was. I've been watching less and less TV for quite some time. Um, and the quality of what is available outside of sport on domestic networks, whatever, however you watch on telly, it's not as good as what it was 20, 30 years ago. It really isn't. Growing up, I used to love watching, all sorts of programs. I can now buy those programs on DVD. So if I missed an episode of a TV series, put it on DVD or it's on a streaming service because Netflix or Disney Plus. I don't watch Disney. I only watch Netflix. They've bought the rights to that program, and I can watch the whole box set of every single episode, even the episodes I missed. No ads. Whenever I want. So the rise of DVD and VHS. VHS. Remember that? I do. You might be a bit young for that. Betamax. I used to have one of them as well. The rise of home media has affected it. So when it comes to TV rights negotiations with sport, and this is what Major League Baseball is going to find. The longer this lockout with baseball goes on, the harder it is going to be for them when they go to the networks in the US and Canada about negotiating their next TV deal. The networks are going to go, yeah, but you've had massive issues with your players union. There's a lot of unrest there. There's a lot of issues there. You're less stable than other leagues. We have a finite amount of money. The other leagues are more stable, or they're growing, so we're getting more advertising revenue, more viewership revenue, more people are subscribing to our service. We'd rather invest in the MLS, the NHL, the NFL, the NBA. We'd rather renew our contracts or put new contracts in place for those leagues than your league. So Major League Baseball needs to solve this lockout quickly. They need to come to a compromise agreement between the Players Association and the league. And the fact that they're not even discussing a salary cap is head scratching to me. Completely head scratching to me. The fact that they've allowed these issues to fester since 1995 is ridiculous. How they've allowed the situation to go on so long with these issues not being resolved at every CBA. These issues have remained constant in the background, building up. And in that period, you've had several on-field scandals like the sign-stealing Astros scandal and the steroid scandal, amongst other issues of player misbehaviour and team ownership problems. Major League Baseball, when they come to their next media rights agreement, are on the back foot. The broadcasters now have the power. They can say, well, we're only going to offer you this much rather than what you want, because they look at the product and go, it's a damaged product. And other sports have got to, remember that when their players are misbehaving or when there's labour unrest or scandal, it does actually affect the public image of what we perceive of that sport. So the NHL with how important is the FIFA video game to the growth of football? Well, That's an interesting one because FIFA is not the only video game that has ever had rights to, um, you know, EA Sports is not the only one that's had rights to UEFA or FIFA when it comes to video games. We've got Pro Evo Soccer, we've had UEFA Striker, we've had 2K, I think, had a game at one point. EA have obviously had the longest running contract with FIFA and the various European and North American and European leagues and all that. Um, I wouldn't say it's the massive growth that people realise. I This is Football was another one. I mean, I've still got UEFA Striker, which is a 22-year-old game that UEFA signed with Infogrames. It was one of the most popular games actually of the 90s. The company that made it's now gone out of business, but that was a very popular game series that I think had about 3 games in the series. Um, but what they had to do, because EA Sports had the agreement with FIFA, they had to drop the club names a little bit. They had to change the club name, so it wasn't like Sporting Lisbon or Manchester United. It was Manchester Reds and the green hoops of Lisbon. So they they it was a bit weird. So the club names were just a bit different. I will get to the Bellingham comments because I've actually read that article in full, and I will have my piece on that because that is very worrying that a referee that has been involved in a match fixing scandal and was suspended. I will admit that he was suspended for 6 months, raises concerns about the integrity of football. Just raises massive concerns, but I'll get to that in time. FIFA, obviously, the, it does make a lot of revenue for both EA Sports, EA Games, and FIFA itself, and the players do get their likeness money, um, and that's actually written into player contracts. Your likeness is being used; you get a percentage of the sales of that product. I think it's helped with the growth, but at the same time, in the established markets, we already, know who the players are. We are football fans, or we are sports fans. We all, and then I don't know how much it's contributed. It's made a lot of money for FIFA and the players. They made a lot of money out of it, but the game isn't that good. The FIFA video game series now is not great at all. My thoughts on Bellingham's comment. I think they're justified. I think they are justified. I think both Munich and Dortmund, regardless of the result, I think they should be allowed to raise their concerns about being refereed by a referee who was implicated in the 2005 Germany match fixing scandal, um, which was overshadowed by the Italian match fixing scandal. But that's another story which we can get to, which has been brought up in the comment sections before. I think Bellingham and his teammates and the wider footballing public can definitely raise concerns um, about about the fact that a referee in a big game has been suspended for taking bribes. Absolutely, I think that is a justified comment. If Bellingham and his teammates and his coach get fined from that, because the coach was sent to the stands, there was some very dodgy calls in the game. They're going to get fined, but the German FA is going to fine them. But if Bellingham gets a fine for that, or any of his teammates get a fine for that, that just shows where football's at. Because admittedly, it's 16 years ago that this referee was implicated. He was found guilty of offences. He was suspended. Um, yeah, I think it. I think. Well, but the facts speak for themselves. The referee has been suspended in the past. He has been linked to corruption. I think Bellingham um, should be allowed to air his concerns. If you believe that you are not having the game refereed fairly, or there is or I mean, I'll have to look at that NBA referee who was done for illegal gambling and went to federal prison as an NBA referee. I forget his name, which is really frustrating because I've done a video on it, and I've read up about it. He never refereed ever again. He was banned for life from all forms of sport. Um, I honestly believe that I think it is unfair and wrong that that referee still has a job because the German referees are all professional. They're all directly employed by the German FA. The fact that that referee has been suspended, I think he should have been sacked, to be honest. Um, I don't know enough about the German scandal in comparison to the Italian scandal because it was overshadowed at the time by the Italian scandal that broke back in the same time. Because the Italian scandal involved bigger clubs and bigger names in the sport. But the mid to late 2000s, there was a lot of match fixing scandals across a lot of European leagues, um, some of which are still being investigated. I mean, UEFA have admitted Donahue, that's the one. Donahue, that's the NBA referee's name, and I've seen him interviewed now, and he obviously in his book he spills the beans, and a lot of his ex colleagues are trying to sue him, and he's like, "What have I got to gain? I've got no money. You can sue me for what? I'm skin." Yeah, Donaghy, that's his name. Yeah, the NBA were fully aware that there was a negative gambling culture, and a lot of people have raised concerns in the US and Canada about the rise of the legalization and liberalization of the gambling laws. Now, not every state allows it because it's down to state jurisdiction. But I follow a guy called the Hockey Guy, and he lives in Canada. Now, in Canada, the gambling laws are different. Very similar to ours. You've got your state lottery, like national lottery, you've got provincial lotteries, regional lotteries, which we obviously have here. But the gambling laws in Canada are completely different to the US. They're very similar to ours in Australia and the Commonwealth nations. Very, very similar. Um, um, but what is it? UEFA currently are aware of between 500 and 700 games, including internationals and tournament games, that are being investigated for suspicious betting patterns in the last 15 years. These are high-profile Champions League, Europa League, Euros, World Cups, domestic league competitions, domestic cup competitions. UEFA are admitting basically there was a freedom of information request by Der Spiegel, who are brilliant in exposing football corruption and sports corruption in general. Der Spiegel is one, I mean, they're a German publication, but they have exposed so much sports corruption in a variety of sports. It's unreal. And I'll get on to another sporting incident that happened a couple of years ago in the Swedish Hockey League, which is very interesting when it comes to suspicious betting patterns. Where there was a game about to happen. I think it was in the second division of Swedish ice hockey, and the NHL was about to sign all these sponsorship agreements with these casinos and gambling companies, and the US was about to vote on liberalizing the gambling laws outside of the state of Nevada. And 6 hours before face-off, the match was abandoned. It was postponed, and I think 8 players were suspended. This is the second tier of Swedish ice hockey. Who the hell really would want to bet on that? Let's be honest. So the, the gambling companies do have safeguards in place where they will raise the red flag and they will contact the authorities and say, look, we believe there's suspicious betting patterns. We as an industry have a concern. This is not a problem gambler or several problem gambler. There is an attempt to fix or defraud us and the other punters. So your general, I'm putting a fiver down on Bayern Munich to win 3-2. So if I put a fiver down for Bayern Munich to beat Borussia Dortmund 3-2 and there'll be a penalty in there, I would have won a fair bit of money. Um, in regards to the referee, I do believe he should have been banned. If Donaghy, the NBA ref, and this is again different sport, different governing body, different legal system, but there is a principle in place where there's a precedent in place for a professional referee to be not only suspended but banned from life from all forms of sporting activity. Then I believe this German ref, again a full professional, should also have faced the same consequence because these incidents were roughly in a similar time frame that should have been kicked out of football altogether and banned from sport altogether because he could have retrained as a rugby union ref, a rugby league ref, an ice hockey ref if he could skate, um, an administrator in another sport. I honestly believe that the German FA at the time did what they thought was right, but as we've now seen, I think that was a mistake on the German FA's part for not being stricter, even if it's a cock up. There are procedures in place to prevent that thing from happening. I fully support Jude Bellingham in his comments. Not because I have a soft spot for Dortmund, because I used to live near Dortmund when I was a kid, when I was living in the army base in Germany, and my dad had a soft spot for them as well. Not because of that. Irregardless of the teams playing, and irregardless of the result, I fully agree with the players raising concerns and the coach raising concern. Hang on a second, this referee that's refereeing our game has been suspended for involvement in match fixing, and this is one of the biggest games in German football. I would totally support the players and the manager in that instance. It would be the same if Bayern Munich players were coming out and management saying we have concerns about this official officiating our game. Um, yeah, the fact that I wasn't aware of someone coming out regarding some of the minor European leagues in Ireland and Malta. They're not obviously the biggest leagues in the world. Not a lot of money in those leagues, but the fact that still top flight football, regardless of the country. And people go, oh, it's only the Maltese League, it's only the Irish League, the League of Ireland. Doesn't matter. It does not matter because clubs in those leagues qualify for the UEFA competitions such as the Europa League, the Conference League, and the Champions League. Um, and that's where they make their money. If they make it to the group stages of any of those competitions, that's their budget for the next 4 years sorted because they're going to get loads of televised games. It Oh, Juventus, that's to do with some very creative accounting. That's the second time in 2 decades they've been involved in a corruption scandal. They're looking likely to get thrown out of Serie A, possibly right down to the bottom level of Italian football. Serie B looks most likely. Stripped of titles for the second time raises big concerns about the integrity of the game. Um, just there's a reason why Juventus are still clinging on to this European Super League. They know they're going to be stripped of their Serie A status. They know they're going to have to pay a massive fine. They need the money, but their ownership has money because of fiat. Whereas Real Madrid and Barcelona have just mismanaged their finances and can't get government assistance anymore because of UEFA rules. Um, but yes, it does raise concerns. But this is where money has gone too far in the game since the 90s. You look at, as I was saying about, the Italia 90 World Cup, we were on the verge of the Champions League being a thing when it was used to be the European Cup, the rebranding of that. Um, uh, well, the last scandal, there was no title awarded for one of them, and Inter got the other one because there was back-to-back titles that Juventus won. Um, because AC Milan finished second, um, they were also implicated, so no title was awarded for the 2005 season. The 2006 season went to Inter because they finished second. Because I believe AC finished second the year before, they were also implicated. That meant no title was awarded. It is possible that Inter, whoever finished second in the 2020 season, gets awarded the title. Um, Whether that's Inter or Napoli, I can't remember. They may get awarded the title in retrospect. Um, um, but you know, uh, I'll tell you the story behind Juventus's kit design and where they get it from. It's a very interesting story. It involves an English club, one of the founders of the Football League, which we're very interested to know about. Um, the stuff coming out of Juve doesn't surprise me. The stuff that we now know about the financial situations of a lot of big clubs doesn't surprise me. Um, I've always said, if I mean, you guys haven't followed Jordan and Dan, you guys haven't really yet. The Notts County link, yep, Notts County, the owner of Notts County knew one of the investors of Juventus, who was an English industrialist, and they were like, "We want to design a kit. We don't have an idea for a kit. We don't have a lot of money. We want a kit." And Notts County had just slightly redesigned the amount of stripes they had, the vertical stripes, and they went, "You can have our old kit." That's how they got it. That's why Newcastle, Udinese, the former Siena, which reformed, um, all these other clubs that play in black and white stripes got their kit because of Notts County, one of the oldest clubs in existence. Um, it's I can go into more detail about the real story behind it, but that's the short version of it. Um, the the stuff coming about Juventus, the stuff coming out about games under investigation. Um, This is where I believe Alexander Serafin is the right guy to take UEFA forward. Do I agree with all the changes they've made to the European club competitions? No, I have my own theory on that, but that's my opinion. My opinion is not a jot. I'm just a casual YouTuber who does this as a hobby. I'm not making any money off this platform at the moment. Um, you know, I understand why they want to, reformat and work with the formats of the European competitions. It does need a freshen up, I believe. I do believe Serafin's obviously trying to take UEFA in the right direction. He's trying to undo the damage of the Platini era and the Sepp Blatter FIFA era. However, that's not being helped by the proposal by FIFA to move to a 2-year World Cup cycle. That's gone down like a sack of shit. Excuse the S bomb there, but when you've got managers in the game saying we are playing too many games, we have concerns about our players' welfare. We're already going to a World Cup in mid-season to a country that should never have been awarded it because the previous regimes um, um, basically chased the money, and there's a lot of corruption involved and human rights abuses and a whole host of other stuff coming out. The money bubble will burst eventually, and we're seeing the overinflation and the overheating of of football, basically the industry that it is, being exacerbated by the pandemic. Without the pandemic, I think these problems that football is facing are 5 years down the road. Um, but nothing surprises me in football anymore. You cannot be naive like we were 10, 15 years ago. That naivety is gone. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if you were like a few years old at the time and your parents are like, "Oh, there's a corruption scandal. Let's be stunned." No one's stunned anymore when anything comes out about corruption or dodgy dealings. No one is surprised, and that's a shame. I will not eat my hat if Root is top one scoring the Ashes. No, I'll burn it. Well, I'll burn one of them. I've got a few hats. I've got multiple, but this is my trademark. Keeping the mullet under control. I don't think Joe Root's going to be the top run scorer. The fact we haven't even named our Ashes squad yet, where Australia have had to change captain. Um, Australia have had similar disruption. They've already named their test squad. We haven't even named our squad yet. Um, I think the ongoing issues with Yorkshire and now Essex as well, in regards to club culture, it's more than just racism now. I think it's generally the culture of the sport in this country are proving a distraction. And 16 members of the Yorkshire County Cricket Club have lost their jobs either by resignation or being sacked. And the former coach is now taking legal action against Yorkshire County Cricket Club. So this cricketing scandal is far from done, and the repercussions are going to be felt for a very, very long time. And of course, there's a fair few players in the England setup who play for Yorkshire and Essex. So I will have to see, what the final test squad is for the first test. The warm up games have been affected by bad weather, and we've lost a lot of days. There's obviously concerns about the fifth test ever. Um, will the fifth test take place in Perth, for example? There's question marks over that, with the protocols in place and travel restrictions in place. So we're not even sure if this Ashes series will get completed. Um, there's a lot going on in cricket right now, and most of it isn't positive. Both Australia and England are going into this series on the back of scandal. Different scandal altogether, but it does involve the culture of the sport, regardless of racism or sexism or inappropriate behaviour or complaints not being upheld or listened to, players misbehaving in the years leading up to this series. So this Ashes series comes with the backdrop of scandal. And so that in itself, we'll see how it all plays out. We'll see, who comes out on top, who is the top run scorer, gets the most wickets. I think this is Jimmy Anderson's last overseas tour. I think he'll retire next summer. Jimmy Anderson, I think he's going to retire next summer, but I don't think his wicket record as a fast bowler will be broken. I think he's in the top 5 now, or top 4 bowlers of all time. I don't think his wickets for a fast bowler gets broken. Obviously, he's not going to catch Muralitharan and Shane Warne. I think he's past Anil Kumble now, but I don't think Stuart Broad's got enough in his tank to overhaul Jimmy Anderson as the best fast bowler of all time, or McGrath for that matter. So I think Jimmy Anderson, this is going to be his last overseas tour, and I think he'll retire next year. Um, I think Hamid Hasib. I don't know. This is the problem with cricket at the moment. I don't know enough about some of these county players and Australian Sheffield Shield players like I used to, and that is simply because the game is less accessible with the TV rights and the media deal. Um, and it is a sport again very similar to Major League Baseball, aging, declining fan base. People are switching off. The fact that there's a lot of scandal around the sport in recent years has definitely harmed the image of the sport, um, and its brand, and it's made a lot of fans, even hardcore fans, turn their back on the sport. So this Ashes series is important. Hopefully, there's no bad behaviour with players, and the cricket does the talking. There's no bad headlines. Both sets of players go into it, you know, 110%, play in the right manner. Um, but we'll see what happens. Why do I think it's failing? The TV rights, investment by the ECB. They've got their priorities wrong over many years. Um, there's definitely been a lack of attention played to the first class format. Um, they've even got the T20 format and the one day county format wrong as well. The 100 format doesn't help the county game. It's taking investment away from the county game. And I didn't watch a single 100 match, to be fair. I'm getting mixed feedback about the 100. It overcomplicates the sport because you've got to completely change the rule book for it. Um, there's a whole host of reasons, but I think the current scandal involving Yorkshire and Essex and individual players misbehaving with historical tweets and social media and all that. I mean, how far back do we have to go before we're destroying everyone's career? Um, the culture within the sport, the way the sport's governed, and you could definitely argue the TV deal has done nothing to help the domestic game um, at all. Um, I believe the quality of cricket is not as good at Test level, at least, as what it was 20 years ago. Same, but there's a whole load of reasons why domestic cricket, both here and in Australia, is struggling. The Sheffield Shield um, is yeah, there's definitely a reason why Australia and England are not the best sides anymore. Same with the West Indies. The West Indies used to be the best side in the world until the early 90s, and they've just dropped off a cliff the last 25 years. Um, and so, um, oh yeah, I think everyone would rather have a county or city-based T20 competition rather than the 100. But the ECB are basically being very reactionary to a declining fan base and an aging fan base, and their solution is to try and attract housewives, like stay-at-home mums and kids. Um, a better way to do it is to try and get again more school involvement in the curriculum when it comes to the summer sports program, um, investment in state schools, not just public schools like the private schools, but state schools as well. Get more state schools playing the game. Um, The IPL is, I wouldn't call the IPL successful. It's corrupt as hell. There's been loads of corruption allegations to do with the IPL. Loads. Um, is it popular in Britain for people to wear sports jerseys, kits to parties, social events? It is commonplace in the US. I always wear my sports jerseys to house parties and stuff and barbecues because a lot of my friends know that's my this is my hobby. I'm sports mad. I always wear my NHL jerseys like out even on social. I go around in my NHL gear and my NFL gear in the summer. So I've got my San Francisco 49ers and Miami Dolphins jerseys. I've got my Jets jersey. I've got my Screaming Eagle Washington Capitals Jaeger white home jersey from the late 90s. I wear them quite regularly as going out clothing. I wear my Arizona Coyotes hoodie to work. Um, I wouldn't say it's as popular as in North America. It's a cultural thing, but I do. But that's just me. Like, uh, I know people who wear like their beanie hats or baseball caps, that have their sports teams on, regardless of the league they're in. Um, I would say a fair few, people will wear sports branded clothing. Um, I think it's becoming slightly more commonplace, but I think again it's to do with the culture really in Europe. Not You don't see it as much. Um, you do see it, but I don't think on the same level as you do in the US and Canada. I think it is just a cultural thing. Um, you know, for me, it doesn't bother me. I'm pretty chill. I mean, I do regularly wear my sports gear around, and I'm in the new year. I'll be collecting some more. I'll be getting some NRL jerseys at some point. Save up to get them. I will be trying to go on some clearance websites, see if I can pick up a few NHL jerseys if I can, add to the collection. So yeah, I would admit a lot more kids do it. Like not teenagers, but young kids will have their rucksack, which will have their football club on the back, or their tracksuit top, or something. Um, I think it is slightly more common than what it was 25, 30 years ago in general, day to day, Monday to Friday. Weekends, a lot of kids will go around in their sports kit, their sports hoodies, their sports t-shirts. Um, but I think it's becoming a bit more common, but it's still, I don't think, as widespread as in the US and Canada. But that's an interesting question, though. Like, it is an interesting question. Do people wear their jerseys or kits or to party? I do. I always have. I've always like gone sod it. I am, who I am. My friends know that I'm gonna wear, me football shirts or my rugby tops or me ice hockey jerseys. I always do. Yes, no, that's not just where you live. That is a general trend. I think for me to get a Kachina Arizona Coyotes jersey, the new Adidas one, is going to cost me about £450. To get a CCM is damn near impossible because they changed their design in the early 2000s. So I have the last design with the Howling Coyote hoodie, which I got in, I think 2014, 2015. I think I got it in 2015, 2016 for my birthday. So that's when Reebok was still doing it. I think that was a season or two before Adidas got the rights to the NHL jerseys. Um, um, I think yeah. I mean, this season's Man United kit was like 140 quid for a shirt. When I was my Blackburn jersey, which I have on my washing line right now, which is from the 2006-2007 season, I believe that cost my dad 60 quid for an adult medium. £60. I think it was somewhere between 40 and 60 quid for what I had, and that's when we were in the Premier League and we were in what is now the Europa League at the time. That was about, I think, about 50, 60 quid. It wasn't cheap. Um, I've noticed that the prices are going up. My friend wanted to get the Gianluigi Buffon latest Parma goalkeeping kit. It was nearly 250, £300. Um, and it's a retro style to the first kit he wore back in the 90s. 300 quid for a goalkeeping replica. That's ridiculous. Like, absolutely ridiculous. There's a massive markup. Um, um, so in that regard, I do. Yeah, they are massively marked up. Um, Hundreds. That's about right. I've looked on the NRL website, the NRL shop website, and it's around £80 to £100 for jerseys. I want to have a jersey of every team, to be fair, by the time the Dolphins come in. That I do want to have. I do want to have at least a jersey of each team, but I want to get the indigenous jerseys because they are the ones that are collectible. They cost more. I think they're about $200. I think for an indigenous jersey. Average price maybe 250. It's like the alternative, like the third jerseys. I did want to get the Jets wordmark light sky blue one, which they have for the last couple of seasons. Yeah, I looked at the price and went, I can't afford that. That's a week's wages. A week's wages. The most I've ever paid for a jersey was 60 quid. 60 quid's the most I've ever paid for a jersey. Um, yes, you do notice that if a league has like a playoff structure like the NRL, the NHL, those teams that do miss out do have clearance. Their jerseys are always and their their hoodies and t-shirts and baseball caps, anything to do with those teams that miss out on finals football in the NRL, the AFL, or the NHL, those teams that don't make the playoffs, same with the NFL, Major League Baseball. Suddenly, there's a mass clearance for that season's jersey, and you can get them dirt cheap. Um, so uh, I do. I mean, I think my Vegas Golden Knights stuff was quite expensive as well. Um, I've got a T-shirt and a hoodie, like a hockey hoodie. That was about 200 quid in total for that. So while I do love the NHL website, we have a smaller selection over here in the UK than in the US and Canada, and it's harder to get non-Fanatic stuff. I do not like the Fanatics jerseys; they fall apart. Um, I'm very glad that my Winnipeg Jets jerseys are Reebok Authentic. If that was a Fanatics, that would have completely fallen apart by now. I've had it for about 5 6 years. Um, oh wow, North Sydney Bears. Jesus Christ. It's good. It's good that that money is going to the North Sydney Bears. They are a foundation club. They should still be in the NRL. I have my views on the Super League war and the damage it did to the rugby league at the time, which is part of the reason why Adelaide Rams and the Western Reds did actually fail. Was the money side of the game had been sucked out of it because teams were overextending themselves financially and they couldn't survive, like Western Suburbs. Um, but you know, I I've never paid full price for a jersey apart from my Bracknell Bees jerseys, and even then they were about 40 to 60 quid depending on the season. They were pretty well priced for what they were. And I've got a few match jerseys as well that actually are not your replicas, but actually were worn in game. Um, so yeah, I've got a blood jersey. I've got two blood jerseys basically, and both are one of a kind. And one of them was actually worn in game and has got bloodstains down it because the player had to do a jersey change and was bleeding quite profusely. I do believe he had a broken nose and was missing some teeth because he got in a bit of a fisticuff. So I've got a couple of jerseys that are match worn. Um, but I've never paid full price. My dad's paid full price when he bought me a few jerseys, even youth kits. You get the VAT taken off, so they are cheaper. My dad, being an idiot, has always paid full price. He's never got any jersey for me when he was alive in a sale because he's a tit. Um, Fanatics is shit quality. Honestly, it's not the same as authentic. So I would avoid Fanatics if you can. I mean, if you want a jersey, you get a jersey, but your logo here will not be stitched; it'll be printed on, and it will peel off. Um, if you can avoid Fanatics, I would suggest so. If you can fork out, go on to the sponsors website, do it. If you can get to the club shop, do it. If you are doing online, you're more likely to get Fanatics. They are not as good quality. They are cheaper than Authentics, but you're going to find that they tend to fall apart quicker. They don't last as long, um, and so therefore you're going, should I really spend this much money on something that isn't going to last? Um, but the Man United kit, I mean, Christ, 140 quid for something that cost a fiver to make is extortionate. A lot of fans did complain about it at the time. Um, I remember my 1997 Liverpool UEFA Cup and Cup Winners' Cup. No, was it Cup Winners' Cup? 1997? Did they win the FA Cup 97? No, it was the UEFA Cup kit, the yellow alternate away with the red Carlsberg and the Reebok sponsorship, shirt and shorts and socks. Yes, I had the full kit because my dad was a Liverpool fan and thought that's a good idea. Let's piss off my son because I'm a Blackburn fan. But even as a kid, I was collecting jerseys of different teams. Because that was the full kit, that was about four at the time in '97. That would have been about £35 for a full kit with no VAT. Now you're looking at double the price. Do the NHL shops sell authentics? Yes and no. It depends if they stock them for the UK market. If you are in the US and Canada, you can get Authentics, but they're more likely to stock Fanatics because they are cheaper to buy in bulk and they are sold for a cheaper retail price. They're about 60%. They're 60% the value of an authentic. The issue is the logo. They steam print the logos on. They don't stitch. I am lucky that my Jets Reebok was an authentic, hence why it cost my mum an extortionate amount of money. Not even lying on that. Extortionate amount of money. Um, so I'm lucky that I always got the authentics. My Vegas uh, hockey hoodie, it does have the breathable bits, is a CCM. It was the last year CCM had the rights to do any NHL stuff before Fanatics took over. Uh, who does my baseball cap? Because you can get these. I've got this is New Era, so they do all the NHL hats now. Are New Era. Um, quite frankly, if I'm being honest, and I am being honest here, the markup for merchandise is ridiculous. You're more likely to get Fanatics in the UK simply because the sport is less popular over here. There is a fan base here, they know that, but they stock less, and they only stock the original six teams generally have more choice. Where you can have an authentic or a Fanatics, they will give you a choice. It will say Adidas Authentic, Adidas Fanatics. There's about £100 different price because we've had Black Friday. The Black Friday sale, there'll still be the Black Friday sales in place. You will get a discount, but you will see that they will advertise Authentics or Fanatics. Authentics are worth more money anyway. Fanatics they'll have more in stock because they are cheaper and they sell quicker. So they will put more Fanatics in stock. But if you want to get better quality, save up an extra £100. There is £100 difference. There is £100 difference. Um, yeah. Fanatics is just not as good. It's still official merchandise. Don't forget that it's still official merchandise. You're not buying a fake. It's just not as good quality. It's literally more mass produced. I thankfully have never had a Fanatics at all in any of my jerseys. I've got an official CCM Washington Capitals from the late 90s, early 2000s with the Jaromir Jagr. I've got an official Authentics Jets, no name on the back, Reebok. Um, so I've never had Fanatics. I'm just going by what other YouTubers have said who do collect jerseys. Uh, some of my friends as well, and personal experience when I'm going into shops looking at what jerseys to buy. Um, and looking online, you are better off going on, and yet the sizing is different as well. Yes, I will agree with that. But if you are looking to buy any match replica, any replica, go on the official league or team websites. If you're going to go on eBay or Amazon, you're more likely to find fakes, especially eBay. Um, there are some jersey websites or sellers that I can recommend. Um, but I would say to anyone, just pay full price or sale price from the official club shop or the league shop that you are interested in. So if it's the NRL shop, go on the NRL shop. If it's the NHL, go on the NHL, which will direct you to the club page for whatever team you want to buy. So the jerseys I want to get, obviously, the Jets, Arizona, the Seattle Kraken, and the Vegas Golden Knights. They're the four teams that I want to get the jerseys of. The Authentics are more expensive. They are, especially the Coyotes, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Seattle Kraken are the more popular jerseys because two of the new teams and Arizona got Katina back. So that's a cult icon that even non-Arizona fans want to collect. It's a very collectible item. Uh, you will find the option of choice between Authentics and Fanatics. You will find Fanatics is a lot cheaper. It's still official. It is still official. It just costs you less, and the quality isn't as high because you are paying less. Never thought I'd have a discussion about jersey quality. It's amazing, but I've been very lucky that my dad, when he ever bought me a Blackburn or a Liverpool kit, he always went to the club shop, and you are more likely to have Authentics in the club shop. And we're going back before Fanatics was even a brand and Authentics. We're talking about proper replicas. So every single one of my Blackburn jerseys, from Premier League winning uh, Asics to the Kappa League Cup winning, to the Lonsdale 2006-2007 jersey, all of them were authentics and had the proper marks on, say this is an official match replica. It is a thing. What you find on the youth jerseys is the sponsorship and the logo aren't actually in proportion to what they should be on the adult jersey. That's all I'm going to say. But they are all official replicas. Um, yeah, the sizing is different on Fanatics to Authentics. I will say this: um, if you want to get the better quality, regardless if it's Fanatics or Authentic Official, go to the club shop. They will stock both. Fanatics is generally for those with a lower price range, basically a lower budget. It's still official garb. It will still have the official tags on it. It will still have the official buttons on it. Whatever, you know, it's not fake. They're very hard to fake them. There's a way to design. They're designing in a certain way to make them not impossible, but really hard to fake. Um, um, but yeah, talking about sports jerseys, always go on the official club website or to the official club shop. So if you have to travel a little distance, do so. And if you are going on a league website, which will direct you to the club sections or the team sections, like any of the North American leagues or the NRL, again, they'll give you an option between Fanatics and Authentics. You just have to pay more for the Authentics. They stock less of the Authentics as well because they cost more to buy in bulk and they make less of a profit margin, hence why it's a huge markup because it's higher quality. But Fanatics aren't bad, they're just not as good and their sizing isn't as great because they're a little bit more mass produced, slightly lower quality, but they're still pretty decent. Um, but I prefer going for Authentics. I've never been disappointed. You can tell with a Reebok Authentic has the outside patch. Fnatic has it in a different place. The Adidas ones have a little button, and the logo is actually made of metal, where you have the NHL logo. The NRL again will have the NRL logo somewhere, and will have a patch somewhere stating that it's obviously official. What does the Avalanche need to take to the next level? They need to fully fit squad, basically. I think with the Avalanche. They just need to keep their fitness, and McKinnon needs to stay fit and healthy for the rest of the season. Maybe an addition of maybe one or two more defensemen, a little bit more depth. A little bit more depth, maybe. But I think the Avalanche are in a good position. They've got games in hand on the rest of the Central because that's how the fixturing works. That's how their fixture list worked. I think a little bit more depth in defence, maybe a third choice goaltender, just another backup goaltender, just in case there's any injuries there, and maybe another centreman, another two-way centreman. But they're in a pretty healthy position. They just need to keep their key players fit and healthy. Wow! So if you actually return the item, it's going to cost you money. How? Why? You've got your 28-day return policy. Should cost you nothing. If you return within 28 days, should cost you nothing. That is a bit suspicious. Not so happy on that. But if you got it on sale, so a reduced price, you can't complain. If you wanted it, you wanted it. Not going to lie. But because you decided to go with what you bought, yeah, just keep it as part of the collection rather than wear it. Just keep it as part of the go collect and keep it as part of your sports jersey collection. It's always good because in years down the line that actually might become a bit more collectible. Good evening, Rob, Mr. Plague Doctor. How are you going? Obviously, we didn't do our delivery carnage this weekend because you had your kids, but I'm going all right. How are you doing? Next weekend, we're doing some Chinese deliveries and we're going to have fun. Lots of fun, Rob. For those that don't know, Plague Doctor is my good friend Rob, who lives literally a 5-minute walk from my flat. He's a good friend of mine. He's a Senators fan or a Senators fan, so he's in denial right now. He's in hiding. Yeah, Rob, meet everyone else. Rob, if I may say so, does some youth football coaching and youth refereeing. So he's actively involved. He's an ex football player. How are your knees doing with this cold weather? Your knees must be shot, mate. It's my birthday tomorrow. I've got my mum coming over for a little bit, and I'm having a meal with my neighbours having a little get together with my upstairs neighbours. So I'm actually busy tomorrow evening, unfortunately, Rob. But yeah, the Senators have got some issues. But yeah, they've won a couple of games in a row. Um, I think more pressure is on the Pierre Dory and the GM and the ownership. Your knees are screwed always. Don't worry, my shoulder's playing up. I've got nerve issues down my hand again, so my hand's been a bit tingly today. My neck's playing up. My shoulder's really sore, so I know how you feel. My foot's a bit tender. Um, yeah, no, I'm unfortunately I'm obviously at work tomorrow, and then I'm busy in the evening. So unfortunately, if you want to come out over in the evening for a little bit, you're more than welcome, and we can discuss how shit the Senators are this season. Um, but yeah, no, the NHL is really interesting this season. It is so much parity within the league. Um, it's great to see everyone's beating everyone. Um, the teams right at the bottom of the league are still beating teams at the top of the league. The teams in the battle for the playoff places are all scrambling over each other. Um, so when you've got an expansion team beating the Edmonton Oilers in the Seattle Kraken and beating them decisively, that was a great game to watch. You know, the Canadians beating the Blackhawks beating the Capitals. Apparently, that's a brilliant game to watch as well. So there's a lot, going on. But obviously, we've seen a lot of coaching changes. There's some coaches definitely under pressure. Um, so there's definitely a lot going on. So we'll see what happens. There's obviously some players in the headlines for the wrong reasons, like Evander Kane. Will he ever play in the NHL ever again? Um, that's interesting. Uh, oh God, you're still believing in Pierre Dorian. Oh dear. Oh dear. I honestly believe they've made some roster mistakes. I wouldn't blame the current players you have. Wouldn't blame them at all. They're a young team. There's a lack of experience in that squad. I believe they've made some really bad errors with not keeping the leadership core together from 2017 with Eric Carlson and all that. When will the New York Rangers win the Stanley Cup? They're looking pretty good this year. They are playing, I think, better than people expected a little bit. They're in a really good vein of form. Um, I think it's possible they're going to go far in this year's playoffs, but we're only a quarter of the way through the season. They could have a really poor Christmas period. And of course, we've got the shutdown for the Olympics at the moment, although the league has only got a month to make an official decision whether they're going or not. Matt Murray, really, he should have spent a few more. I mean, because they got rid of Fleury and he went to Vegas in the expansion draft in 2017, that pushed Matt Murray in a position he shouldn't have been in. I don't think he was ready to be even though he won two Stanley Cups, and you've got to say that he's won two Stanley Cups. Um, I think because there's not a suitable 1B backup where you can rotate the goaltenders. And the defense in front of him is not of the same standard. He is a young goaltender. He is younger, but clearly something has gone wrong in the whole system at Ottawa. He's on his third coach now at the Senators. That's another coaching change. So that changes the voice behind the bench. The team in front of him is not very experienced, and Matt Murray himself isn't actually that experienced. If you look at the amount of games played for his age, yeah, he's got the two Stanley Cup rings, but he's not the most experienced goaltender available. They've lost that goaltending depth. Um, Clearly, there are issues with his lateral movement, which has been discussed on live streams before. Um, but there are ways to mitigate being slow side to side positioning. So obviously, the goaltending coaches, it's not working. He obviously had very good goaltending coaches at Pittsburgh who could work around flaws in his game. No player's perfect. Not even the great Wayne Gretzky was perfect. He had flaws in his game. He always constantly sought to improve. So even the greatest players of all time were not perfect. There's always room for improvement. Um, you just have to look at what Jaromir Jagr is doing in the Czech League. He's still training at NHL level. He's still putting his body through immense training regime. His training regime is scary. He could technically still play in the NHL. It's mad. What Ovechkin's doing, he's getting better with age. Chara is still playing. So some players do defy the aging process or constantly seek to be uh, as good as possible. Um, so some of these veteran players are still playing in either in the NHL or around the world, and they're still putting up scary numbers. The thing with Matt Murray is there's obviously a confidence issue there, and for whatever reason, he's never fully settled in the Senators organisation. But this is an organisation that has constantly struggled. However, his form towards the end of last season was improving, and Ottawa had a very good second half of the season. And admittedly, in a condensed, shortened schedule, they played quite well in the second half. They just haven't replicated the second half of last season, the beginning of this season, and much was expected. He's facing a firing squad every night. You've had the COVID shutdown. Um, so could his off-season fitness not be quite right? Has he got a niggling long-term injury problem? Is there an attitude? Is there a breakdown in the relationship with other teammates in that locker room? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. Maybe a stint in the AHL may do him good. Get some good AHL minutes behind him. You know, get some form again. Maybe earn a call up when needs be. But I don't think his NHL career is done. I think there are concerns. Jaromir Jagr still playing. Look, Gordie Howe played until he was in his 50s. Jagr says he wants to keep playing until he's 55, and I have no doubt that Jaromir Jagr could possibly do it. I think the issue with Jagr is his knees are shot, and the Czech league is a little bit less physical and a little bit slower paced, which can mitigate um, if, as a player, you do have that injury concern or that you need to, you know, you can play a longer, um, if that makes sense. Who the hell is this? Let's have a look. What the hell? Um, so there are ways to mitigate um, certain long term issues. I don't know how much the Stanley Cup weighs. It's one of the heaviest trophies. It is one of the heaviest trophies out there. I'm just going to see what this is all about. Oh, people keep messaging me. What's this? What is this? Oh, my phone's playing up. It's fine. It's the tax man. I hope it bloody isn't. Oh God. Oh, fuck. Now I've got to remember my password. Oh, piss off. No, just my bloody. Uh, no, there is ways to 34.5 pounds. Christ, that's like 7 babies. That is actually quite a weight. To be fair, um, that is quite a weight. Not going to lie there. That is quite a um, sizable, sizable bit of weight. Yes, the celebrations that the Penrith Panthers had after their NRL Grand Final win did draw a lot of criticism from a lot of people. Um, the the yeah, I'm going to have to do something quickly. But yeah, no, the NRL, the celebrations that um, the Panthers got up to, yeah, they did damage the trophy. They got up to some antics. It did bring the game into, they over. So I've got to check something on my Facebook. It's great. Let's get on there. Please tell me I'm still logged in. Otherwise, I'm going to have problems. Don't log me out, you arse. Da, 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 da. Yeah. But while that's loading, let's get on my messages quickly. But no, their celebrations weren't great. Let's be honest. It did bring a lot of things into raise a lot of concerns. Oh, it turns out my friend's wife has had her Facebook hacked, so I've now been told do not open the link that I've just been sent. Dear, 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 dear. Oh dear, that's a pain. But yeah, the celebrations that the Panthers got up to weren't great. They did. It turned out a fan broke the trophy, but Penrith Club should have done better. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. They got overexcited. I didn't see all the. I just kept reading some of the headlines coming out about bit of misbehaviour. Um, it's like the '99 Dallas Stars winning the Stanley Cup. You know how that got broken? That's a very interesting story. That one. Oh yeah, like yeah. If you've got like I'm renting right now, so a friend of mine could damage something in this flat, I'm liable for it. Absolutely, I understand how that works. But the Penrith Panthers did face a fair bit of criticism. Oh, it's so look, something's been hacked. It's a dodgy link. Don't click it. Uh, if you have a hire car and your friend drives it and crashes it, you're liable absolutely because you're the one who's done the paperwork. Um, the the reason why the Stanley Cup's got a little dent, little few dings in it. 1999, the Dallas Stars win the Stanley Cup. Foot in the crease, obviously, if you're a Buffalo Sabres fan. Um, and Dimebag Darrell and Vinnie Paul, two members of Pantera, were living in Texas at the time, obviously. And Vinnie Paul, the drummer of Pantera, was a big hockey fan, and he invited the Dallas Stars to come over his house for a celebration barbecue. And under the influence of a large amount of alcohol, he threw it into the swimming pool and it crashed off the edge and dented it. He blamed Brett Hull, but he then paid for all the damages of about $10,000 to have the dent replaced. Yes, the Stanley Cup's been damaged more than once. Um, Ovechkin with his celebrations in 2018 were a bit mental. But yes, no, the Penrith Panthers trophy gets damaged. Uh, I think the fact they took photographs of the broken trophy, put it on a pram, and wheeled it around in some other stuff. Well, the Stanley Cup's had some interesting celebratory stories. I think one year it was left in a bar. Um, oh no! Well, look, this is I think the modern day. I mean, a lot of these young players live on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Snapchat, and that's what I call the Instagram generation. 20, 30 years ago, unless a press photographer is paparazzi's floating around, clips it, um, it doesn't make the newspapers. It'll all be a bit hush hush. Unfortunately, in the modern sporting world, a lot of players live their lives on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Snapchat, and they stupidly publicly post a lot of their idiotic antics. And while I'm nothing, no, he didn't. He obviously didn't learn anything from his TikTok video. Again, more silly behaviour. Uh, let's have a look how much the Stanley Cup is worth. Let's have a look at value. Let's have a look at the Stanley Cup value. I want to find out myself. Okay, so originally purchased in 1892 by Lord Stanley himself, Governor General of Canada at the time. The silver punch bowl, because it was literally the top bowl at the time, so it was only the top section that initially existed, which became the Stanley Cup, cost Lord Stanley $48, which amounts to over $1,000 today. Currently, it's worth $23,478. It's worth less than $24,000. But if we're going by proper inflation, it would be worth $1,000 if we're going by just inflation. But in reality, it is insured for $23,478. It's not worth a lot of money. How old is the actual Stanley Cup? What did the Stanley Cup winners get? It's a real silver. Yes, the Stanley Cup's been dropped. Someone else is valued at $650,000. So it varies on source. It varies source to source, but $650,000. One source says it's worth 23,478. Another source is stating 650,000, but it's basically priceless. It's a one of a kind because they constantly add a layer once another ring gets filled up, so it is priceless. But 650K is it's about right for a sports trophy. So there's different sources saying different amounts, but it's still less than what the Football World Cup is worth, because the Football World Cup is pure gold. So there you go. But $650,000 is you can buy a nice house with that. In some states in the US, you can get a 5-bedroom house for that. So that is how much it's worth. It's worth the value of a house. But its real value is priceless if you think about it. It's a one of a kind trophy. It is priceless, but that doesn't surprise me. It's worth over $500,000. Does not surprise me, and it doesn't surprise me that it will go up in value each and every year because of its age. 1892. The A-League trophy doesn't look great, I will admit, but that's a younger league. That's a league that hasn't been going that long. In reality, there's a less history behind it. Some of the trophy designs, they should be cups, really, in my opinion. The Webb Ellis trophy, the Webb Ellis Cup, is worth quite a bit. The original Gilles Rimet trophy, which was replaced by the Globe with the cup with the 4, that's worth millions. The FA Cup is one of the most expensive trophies out there. The Champions League trophy, they've altered the design slightly. The old UEFA Cup has been changed now to the Europa League, which is again a slightly altered design of the traditional UEFA Cup. Are you going to be watching the Masters of the golf? No, I'm not going to be watching the Masters. I used to watch golf. I used to work at a golf course, actually. I used to watch a lot of golf when I was younger. I've gone off golf to a point. Yes, he did found Red Star Paris. Little known tidbit. But as I said, without us and the French, when it comes to global sport, we don't have. Or the Masters snooker, probably not. Probably not. I've gone off snooker in recent years. I haven't been watching the Masters at Augusta either. I've gone off golf and snooker in recent years. It's. Will I get back into again? Possibly, but I haven't played for a long time. I used to play snooker. World Chess Championships. I actually used to play chess at school. I was half decent. Yes, the Lombardi Trophy. Well, it's the NFL. That's worth a fair bit. The Premier League trophy is not as much as you think because it's a younger trophy. The old Division One trophy, which is now the Championship trophy, that's actually worth more because it's older. Um, it is worth a lot more. It's got more silver content. The older the trophy, the more they're worth. It also depends on the metal content, what metals are in the trophy, because a lot of them are actually nickel, plated with silver or plated with gold. Um, so remember that. So if it's nickel plated silver, it's not worth as much as you think. So the FA Cup, the original FA Cup, is worth quite a bit. The current FA Cup is worth quite a bit. The League Cup is not worth as much as people realise because it's plated silver over nickel. So it looks like the same kind of colour as a 5 or 20p piece, kind of silver colour. So it's not true silver. True silver does actually oxidise a little bit. You have to regularly polish it. I'm trying to think now. Yeah, some of the trophies are worth quite a bit, but isn't the crown on the Premier Trophy of pure gold? I believe it's plated. It's gold plate. It's gold plated. So there's gold in it. It's not pure gold. Not that I'm aware of, but I could be wrong. But I'm not that I'm aware of. Also, every time you win, the Premier League, the FA Cup, the League Cup, European trophies, you get a replica, which is worth a significantly lesser amount. You get given a replica. So Blackburn have got a replica of the Premier League in our trophy cabinet. We had the original FA Cup in our trophy cabinet, so we were the first club to win it 5 times. So we were allowed to keep that trophy. Same with Brazil and their FA are allowed to keep the original Gilles Rimet trophy. That is actually owned by the Brazilian FA now, hence why the new design. So if you look at 1966 when Bobby Moore is lifting the trophy, it's a different trophy to when Pele's lifting it no, it's the same trophy as when Pele's lifting it in 1970. But then you look at the 74 World Cup when Beckenbauer's lifting it, it's the new trophy. The EFL trophy, no, the Football League trophy, the Championship trophy, the EFL trophy, no, that's been a competition for quite a few years. It's actually an older competition than the Premier League as a cup competition. It is actually ironically worth more than the Premier League because it's actually got a higher silver content. The League Cup is actually worth more than the Premier League trophy for value because it's got a higher silver content because it's an older competition. But it's still worth a fair bit of money. But again, every club gets a replica of the trophies they win. However, once you win that trophy 5 times, you get to keep that copy of that trophy. So the Premier League trophy you see now is not the original Premier League trophy of 1992. It is a remake of the original. Once you win a competition 5 times, you are allowed to keep that version of the trophy that you win for the 5th time, and they have to make a brand new one. The Johnston's Paint Trophy, the old LDV Vans Trophy, that's a competition that's been going since the 60s or the 70s. So that's still a reasonably old trophy when it comes to the modern sport. It's still a reasonable amount of money. It'll be about 25 grand, I would have thought. It's not a big trophy, though. It's not a massive trophy like the League Cup. It's a smaller. The FA Cup, the League Cup, and the EFL trophy are actually smaller trophies than people realise. They're only about that big. They're not very big at all. Well, I think one of the most iconic trophies in sports is the Claret Jug, which you get at the Open Golf. That's like 150 years old, and is pure silver and was used to actually pour claret, ironically. What will happen to the new World Cup when the plate fills up at the bottom? They'll just design a new one. The next team to win it 5 times, I believe, is going to get given a replica of that one. They're allowed to keep that one, and they'll design a new one. Who are going to keep the team that win it or the most recent? I think the Ashes Trophy is dead old. It's that big. Little worm. It's that big. But now there's the glass equivalent, which gets handed over. But the actual Ashes urn itself is 1888. Ancient. It's worth apparently £1 million. The Ashes urn, £1 million. That's what the last estimate, £1 million. Weird that we've gone on to trophy value. But normally, after you win a title 5 times, you're allowed to keep that copy of the trophy, and a new one has to be made. So, yeah, once you win a trophy 5 times, a new copy is made, and you get to keep that copy, which is not necessarily the original. And then when the next team wins it 5 times, they get to keep that in their trophy cabinet rather than the replicas that they are allowed to keep. And so it continues. So the Champions League trophies, Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Liverpool have got copies of that. Huh? Yep, that is correct. They will get an authentic copy. Sometimes I think the original FA Cup, the original World Cup, have been replaced, and then you get a copy of a replica of. So if you look at the trophy cabinets of like Liverpool, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United, Chelsea, they have got the replica of the Champions League, Europa League. Yeah, the AFL trophy is quite small. Used to win the pennant back in the day, the old flag. Um, the World Series trophy is weird. The Lombardi trophy is literally just an American football on a pin for the Super Bowl. Oh, God, yeah, some of the trophies are really strange in their design and their composition. But the history behind them is amazing, absolutely amazing. The history behind some of these trophies and awards are absolutely amazing. But like the Dally M medals and the Brownlow medal in the AFL, you got to keep that for a year, and then you get given a replica. Because if you're the player that wins the Dally M, or you're the player that wins the Brownlow, you get given a replica after a year. They give you a replica of the medal. That you hold it for a year, then you give it back for the next award ceremony. You give them a replica to go in your trophy cabinet. But yeah, you look at some of the trophies. I mean, I've been in Liverpool's trophy room when I was a kid, and this is well before the Champions League and UEFA Cup triumphs they had in the 90s and the 2000s and all that, and all their FA Cup wins at Cardiff. You go in there, and it's amazing what you see. Um, the old Division One trophy, the old Cup Winners' Cup, all these old trophies. It is amazing when you're in there. Yeah, the players, yeah, the club gets a replica, all that kind of stuff. Trophy cabinets are amazing to look at, especially the historical eras of clubs. They are absolutely amazing. So yeah, the old FA Cup replicas, the old Division One, the old Cup Winners' Cup, the old European Cup, Nottingham Forest, for example, Aston Villa, Everton. They've got trophies in their cabinets. People just don't realise it. Um, it's amazing when you go to clubs and you just look at the success they've had historically. It is a humbling experience going, this is history in front of you. And obviously some clubs are more successful than others and they have bigger trophy rooms. Um, Other clubs cherish their success more. So Leicester, for example, have got 2 League Cups, a Premier League, Charity Shield, and an FA Cup in their trophy cabinet. It's not a lot. They won 7 major trophies in their existence or something. They've won the league a couple of times as well, or something, or some such. Leicester have got 7 trophies. Blackburn, a lot of FA Cups in there, a League Cup and Premier League. I think QPR have got a League Cup in their history, or Palace do, I think. Um, Sheffield Wednesday have got a League Cup in their history, their most recent trophy in 1993. Yes, Everton had a fair few. Yes, Villa had a fair few as well. Wolves had a couple. Preston North End have got a few league trophies in there. There's quite a bit of success before the Premier League. It's people forget that before 1992, a lot of clubs had success in their history. A lot of clubs had a lot of success. Tottenham, ironically, have won the league twice, the FA Cup a few times, the League Cup a few times. So, okay, then in that case, it is QPR winning the League Cup. Then I thought Palace have won a major trophy. I knew it was one of the London clubs that were unfashionable had won a major trophy. Must be QPR then. But no, there's a lot of history behind a lot of clubs, and a lot of younger fans don't realise that football existed pre 1992. What would I do for the Blues to have FA Cups and a Premier League title? I think Birmingham City are a long way off winning any silverware. No offence, um, but on saying that, there's a lot of history with a lot of clubs, and it is really interesting going and looking in the trophy rooms of these clubs, and looking at the historical success they've had. And of course, not every team can win a trophy. There are a lot of teams that have never won a trophy who are playing. And but then you've got clubs like Borussia Mönchengladbach, and if you go into their trophy cabinet, they've won quite a bit. Watch that history video that I did. Borussia Mönchengladbach won a lot of trophies back in the day. In the 70s and the 80s, they were a very dominant German side. They were the best side in Germany in the 70s. They won the most trophies in that decade. The 70s was Borussia Mönchengladbach's decade of success when they were the dominant German side. Hamburg have got trophies. Schalke have got trophies. Bayer Leverkusen have got trophies. Not just Bayern Munich's league. The Bundesliga is very, very interesting. The history behind it, the clubs that have had success in that league, really interesting. Really, really interesting league history. I've got to do some more club history videos at some point, and I think I'm going to look at Eintracht Frankfurt next, and then I'm going to look at teams like Cagliari and other clubs. Nuremberg won a lot back in the day. Yes, that is true. Um, there's a lot of clubs in Germany have had a lot of success. It really will surprise a lot of people when you look at the historical success of clubs. Munich weren't really a successful club until the 70s. They didn't win a lot before then. And Borussia Mönchengladbach won more trophies in the 70s than any other German club. They were the really one of the most dominant sides in German football in the 70s. Eintracht Frankfurt have won a few trophies as well. So it is very interesting looking at the history of some of these other clubs that aren't what we class as fashionable now. They were very, very. 1970, I believe, Cagliari won their only Serie A. Hellas Verona have won Serie A in 1986. Hellas Verona. You got Chievo and Hellas Verona. Hellas won in '86, I believe. So Serie A is very interesting as well, with the history of that league. In Cagliari, I think won in 1970. I'll have to double check Cagliari. That's their only major trophy from Sardinia. The only Sardinian team to win Serie A, and the only team not from the mainland of Italy to win Serie A. Genova, yep, very, very successful. Sampdoria as well have got a fair bit of success. Yeah, it's a shame with some of the clubs, hitting hard times and going out of business and reforming. Yep, Portsmouth have 2 FA Cup titles in there as well, and First Division titles. Southampton got an FA Cup title in there. So people don't realise that it's not just the big 4 or the big 6 in this country that win all the titles. Other clubs have won silverware in the modern era and historically as well. So Serie A 90s or Premier League 2010s. I would say Serie A in the 90s. The 80s and 90s was the best league in Europe, and that was probably the best. Yeah, Chievo Verona gone. It's Hellas Verona now that exist. Chievo don't exist anymore. Not in the current format. They have reformed, but with a different name. It happens a lot in Italian football. So many teams have refounded next. Yeah, they're allowed to buy the rights to the name, but it's not the same club. Parma being a prime example. Palermo being another example. Who else? I think Bari have technically reformed. Ancona's another one, who are an ex-Serie A club. It happens a lot in Italian football. It's everyday occurrence in Italian football. I think a lot of people miss Catania and Palermo kicking the shit out of each other on a Saturday afternoon in Italian football. I certainly do. Palermo had a very good side in the early 2000s. Very, very good side. Their kits, though, are horrendous. Salmon pink should just not be a football kit. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Or black and salmon pink halves just should not be a football kit. Parma reformed. They've had money problems for about 20 years. Chievo, I do believe, still exists, but they've reformed and it's a slightly different name. But they are still going, but in a different. It's like Rangers having to reform. It's not the same club because of money issues. But it's a common occurrence. Siena don't exist anymore. They've had to reform. Shit, who else? There's some other clubs that are quite sizable in Italy that have had. Fiorentina technically haven't, but they have had money issues. Parma have dropped down the divisions, come back up. Catania, Lecce, that's another one. Bari, Palermo, Pisa. I think they've gone. Livorno have gone out of business. Piacenza is another one. Vincenza, yeah, there's loads of them. It's ridiculous. The instability in Italian football. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. And it will continue to be a problem. I fear long term. Bari, I remember when Bari were a brilliant side. Brilliant side in the 90s. They've got one of the biggest stadiums in Italy, the San Nicolo. It's an amazing stadium. They're playing in Serie B. Yeah. Napoli have had their problems. Yep. Napoli have basically gone tits up. It is a shame that so many clubs that were really Juve getting like you see Juve ending up like Palermo or Catania. If this corruption scandal is as serious as predicted, Serie B is a light punishment. They could be thrown out completely. AC Milan as well. Inter Milan have got money problems. Italian football's in a mess. It's been like that way for about 25, 30 years. Since Italian 90s, so many clubs have had financial problems. And it's a stain on the game, which is why corruption is so endemic in Italian football. There's so much instability and poor governance, it's ridiculous. They're not all Southern Italian teams, ironically. They're not all Southern Italian teams. Fiorentina, Parma, Pisa, Piacenza, they're all from central and northern Italy. Atalanta have had their money issues, but that is Bergamo's team. Every citizen in Bergamo is automatically made a member. Should they wish to rescind their membership, they can do so at any time. And every newborn baby is automatically enrolled as a member. And every newborn, the family are given clothing, medical assistance, the whole lot. Atalanta is possibly the best club in Italy, in my opinion, for its community base. It really is a communities club. The whole city love the city of Bergamo is Atalanta. You won't go to Bergamo and see an Inter Milan or an AC Milan or Juventus jersey. It's just not done because the way the club respects the community that supports it by supporting newborn babies with the family. They give them baby clothes. They give them supplies for the first 6 months. The child is automatically enrolled as a member of the club. All that. It truly is the ultimate community club, Atalanta. You won't see a better community club in European football. They don't have lots of money, but the city, it's their club. Regardless of what level they're playing at, the fans are fanatically loyal. Every citizen of Bergamo is automatically enrolled as a member of the club. That's like 230,000 people. It's the second biggest city in Lombardy, after Milan. It's ridiculous. It is what it is. Lazio and Roma sharing the Stadio Olimpico is like AC Milan and Inter Milan sharing the San Siro. It is mad. The Eternal City derby is one of the nastiest derbies in football. Roma are more basically proud fan base. Lazio has got links to the far right. Lazio, unfortunately, has links to fascist supporting groups. That is a really divided. Roma is slightly more left wing leaning. Lazio is more right wing leaning. It does divide the city completely. It is one of the most heated, toxic rivalries in Italian football. There is no love lost there. Yeah, no, the most of Turin supports Torino, which is amazing. Torino is the red. Juve is more the rest of Italy. It's like Manchester United, where more Man United fans don't live in Manchester, live outside. Um, Torino is a red city, with Torino the club. Um, just leave it at that. Um, but yeah, Atalanta, Ladea. That's one of the jerseys I want to get. I always want to get a Pescara jersey because they are cult. The dolphin, the Pescara jersey is beautiful. I want to get my hands on one. They are really hard to get hold of. Um, I want to get a Pescara jersey just because I don't care if it's Serie B. I just want to have my hands on one. One of the best jerseys in football. Um, I want to get my hands on an Atalanta jersey. That's really hard to get hold of outside of Italy. Um, I'm not so sure in Liverpool. I think that's a pretty even split. And then of course you've got Tranmere across the Wirral and across the Mersey. So Merseyside has got a fair few clubs. Uh, so Birkenhead is just Tranmere, and then Liverpool itself is a pretty even split. I think. I have been to Liverpool. I have the stadiums are literally about half a kilometre apart. You've got Stanley Park in between. That's about 500-600 meters. But yeah, uh, I like the old when Roma didn't have sponsorship on their jerseys in the 90s when Totti was first coming through. That's the Roma jersey I like. Um, I wouldn't necessarily say Everton is Liverpool's club. I would say it's a pretty even split in Merseyside, but Liverpool's got the greater global reach, partly to do with their success um, historically. Yeah, Juve shirts are very easy to get hold of. Uh, I'd rather get an Atalanta or Pescara jersey from Italian football because I think they're just better looking. I miss the days of the old Pirelli Inter Milan jerseys because they are iconic from the 90s and early 2000s. The old Pirelli sponsorship on the Inter Milan jerseys, the old AC Milan Opel jerseys as well. They're pretty iconic, and Mediaset ones from the 90s and 80s. They're iconic as well. Um, uh, there are I like the old Parma ones as well. I like the old late 90s Parma jersey. I like the Fiorentina jersey from the 90s because I like that regal purple. I don't know why. Um, and I like the way Udinese do their striping, which is slightly different to Juventus as well. Uh, which I find really interesting. I think the biggest 50-50 split in a city in English football is not Sheffield or Manchester, it's Bristol. Bristol Rovers, Bristol City. That's a very even split. Um, very even split between Rovers and City and Bristol. That's a fierce rivalry, that is. Very fierce. But I do want to get my hands on an Udinese jersey. I want to get my hands on an Atalanta jersey. Um, a Pescara jersey just because it's just brilliant. The jersey was designed by a 5-year-old, by the way, the dolphin and the colours. I just want to get my hands on a Pescara jersey because they are iconic and cult, just iconic. I wouldn't mind a Catania jersey because I wouldn't mind one of them or a Cagliari. I like Cagliari's jersey. Sampdoria is another one I like. I don't support any Premier League team, but I've got to admit the league is fantastic. It is. There are some. I'm trying to remember back in the day what jerseys I enjoyed in the 90s. I think the 90s jerseys are far more collectible and far nicer looking than the modern jerseys now. They're all very bit generic now. I like the old Arsenal JVC kit from the 90s, from the Premier League era. The old Leeds kit as well, with the slightly older logo, not the current logo, the logo before from 95, 96. That's a nice kit. The old Southampton kit when it had Sanderson on the front from the 90s when Matt Le Tissier was playing. It's got different striping to the Southampton kit now. I like that a lot. The red and white stripes. Looks very similar to the Sunderland kit at the same time, which is a bit interesting. But I like the old Southampton with the Sanderson sponsorship. The old Man City with the brother sponsorship is quite nice as well. I wasn't so keen on that. I prefer the sharp Viacom jerseys. I prefer the sharp Man United jerseys. They're the jerseys I remember. Oh god, they are here. They're hideous. Modern jerseys now are hideous. They're not. The 90s was the peak of jerseys. I think, in my opinion, that was the peak of kits because they were still traditional colours. So I like the old 90s Southampton kit. I like the old Blackburn kit from the 90s with collar. The Asics kit. What other kits do I like from back in the day that are iconic? The old Charlton Athletic away kit from their first season in the Premier League. Barnsley's kit from their Premier League season. I want to get my hands on one of them. I really do. Villa's kit from the I would say early 2000s, which was actually striped claret and blue. I want my hands on one of them because now they've gone back to the West Ham Burnley style of claret and blue, and I'm not so keen on that. And Scunthorpe, they all play in exactly the same kit design. I like the Aston Villa one where it is literally striped claret and blue. That is one I want. I'm not a big fan of the current Juventus logo. I like the old Juventus logo. I like the kit from the 90s with Canal Plus. Yes, but I still think it's an iconic kit. I still think it's an iconic kit. I like the old Dr. Martens West Ham kit as well. The Paolo Di Canio era and the Slaven Bilic era and the Thomas Repka era. I want one of them. The old Autoglass Chelsea. I've got a fair few friends who are Chelsea fans that have the old Autoglass kits and they prefer them. A lot of my mates are Chelsea fans. They have the old Autoglass kit from the '97 FA Cup final year. That I think is their best kit with the old logo. That for me is their best kit. But again, it's subjective. I think the 90s and early 2000s were the best football kits that we had around, and they got rid of the collars and the old buttons, and they all changed design. They all became very generic, and then Nike and Adidas and Puma and Kappa. They all became very generic and all the same. They weren't skin tight. They're not as nice now. Goalkeeper kits are hideous. Teams don't wear their traditional colours as much, as in the shorts and jersey being different now, like all in one. The old Snooky Brown Newcastle kit from Adidas of the late 90s is an iconic kit. I want to get my hands on one of them as well. From the Shearer days, the peak Shearer days, when they had Nobby Solano and David Ginola. That Newcastle kit is iconic from the mid to late 90s. Do you think Juventus can keep up in the next couple of years? It all depends on this corruption investigation with the what happens with this current investigation and where if they get thrown out down to the bottom tier of Italian football. It all depends on what happens. I think Italian football is going to become very competitive again, like it was in the 90s, where multiple teams are going to win, which can only be good for the league, can only be good for the sport. With clubs like Atalanta and Sassuolo and Lazio back at the top, and you've got Roma are pretty solid at the moment. Both Milan clubs are battling again. Roma is not a rhino; that is a wolf, by the way. It's the Roman Latin wolf with Romulus and Remus. Don't know where you got the rhino from. There's some pretty good kits out there from the mid Premier League era and the early Premier League era. I think that was the iconic moment with football kits. Now they're very generic. I'm not keen on some of the striping, like Yeovil Town. I like some of their kits. I do. Um, yeah, it's the she wolf of Rome. It is the lupus. It is the wolf. They're not. It's not a rhino. It's a wolf with two Romulus and Remus, the founding sons of the Roman Republic, and that's why they also have SPQR in there as well. The Senate, the Senate Populares Republican, SPQR, Senatores Populares Quaestor Republicana. There you go. People's Republic of Rome. I'm remembering my Latin there. Senatores Populares Quaestore um, Republica. People's Republic of Rome. There you go. I remember my Latin from school. That's what SPQR stands for. Yeah, the People's Republic of Rome. SPQR. Uh, yeah, for the Senate and People of Rome. That's pretty much what it stands for. Yeah, Senatores Populares Quaestore Republica. There you go. That's my remembering my Latin from about 20 years ago. I am old. Please leave me alone. I haven't studied Latin since I was 14 years old. I'm 32 in 2 hours. I haven't studied it for nearly 20 years. I can still remember what SPQR stands for. I follow all the leagues, one league champion, league one most. Well, I follow more the NRL and the NHL, but I also follow the FA Cup. Oh god, that was a hideous training kit, the green flag one. Hideous. Was not a fan of that at all. But it's still better than the Vauxhall one we have now. So, or the BT. I think it's BT we have now. It is BT. It was Vauxhall for a while. Yeah, it's BT now. Everyone has their favourite sports league. So looking at like the leagues that everyone likes, some people like the Super League, the NRL. I like the NHL and the NRL. One of our American subscribers, Dan, he's a Major League Baseball fan and follows the Ottawa Senators in the NHL. So everyone has their favourite leagues to watch, their favourite teams to follow. I have my two favourite leagues. Obviously, I follow the FA Cup. I will, if required, I will. If people ask, I will watch some NBA. I will watch some NFL. Um, I like a few teams. I like their kits more, but I always have. I like Atalanta. I like Udinese. I like to see them do very, very well. Um, uh, I love just the history of the sport in Italy. I used to like see Bari do quite well as well, just because they weren't one of the big clubs in the sense that Um, but I remember fondly Fiorentina and Parma and Sampdoria being big clubs in the 90s, really fighting for the title and winning trophies. It's not the case anymore, but it's starting to. The wheels are starting to turn. But I miss Fiorentina being one of the top four. But Gabriel Batistuta up front always makes my fantasy 11. I would rather have Crespo and Batistuta up front than Messi and Ronaldo on the wings or up front. I would take Crespo and Batistuta over Messi and Ronaldo any day of the week. Um, yeah, it's just the way Atalanta play. Atalanta don't play a traditional Italian style. Neither do Sassuolo. That's why they're insane to watch. That's why they're shaking up the league. That's why Atalanta are having success. They play a really fun style, and their tactics suit the strength of their team. They got some really good players, and historically they've had good players as well. I mean, Christian Vieri's played for Atalanta in the past, so they've always had decent squads. They've got a good youth system, and their style of football is refreshing. I think is the best way. It's very refreshing. Sassuolo as well, very refreshing watching a new club challenging. Um, always fun to watch, and that's why I root for those underdogs because they have a style, they have culture, and they are really more community clubs than some of the big monoliths of European football. They are truly clubs at the heart of their community. Basically, like the German system, ironically, with them. Do I think Juve will get top four this season? I think it's going to be difficult, especially with what's hanging over their heads, and they could be just thrown out the league anyway. I think it's going to be very, very difficult. I think their decline has begun. I think Atalanta are very close to winning a trophy, but I remember they were a yo-yo team. They've got stability now. They've got a style of football that's entertaining to watch and successful. Uh, they could do something. Watch this space. I think they're building something in Atalanta. Even if they only win the Serie A the once, they're still building something. And they are challenging the established order. Yeah, yeah, they are establishing challenging the established order in the hierarchy of Italian football. Same with Sassuolo. And Parma have had a resurgence, which is refreshing to see that name back in the in the fold. Um, Torino are solid side again. Lazio and Roma are hammer and nail. Napoli are back at the top end. It's refreshing to see the old names and some new names, in the mix again. Juventus, we'll see what happens with this corruption scandal. This could be a scandal too far for Juventus, and it will be really damaging for the most successful club in Italian football. Really damaging, and a lot of fans are very despondent with direction it's taken. It's because they don't actually technically play in their home town. They play in where do they play? Is it Modena? It's not their It's not their original stadium. Their original stadium only met Serie C or Serie B categorization. It's not allowed in Serie A because of the capacity. So they lease a stadium 7 miles down the road, and they've only got a small fan base anyway. They really are like Bournemouth and Bournemouth in the Premier League or Blackpool for fan base. They're a small club in a big pond. Um, yes, I would say Lazio and Roma would question that because they've got fanatical fan bases as well. But it's nice seeing more names in the mix again, and Juve not dominating all the time. It's better for Italian football in the long run that you have multiple clubs at the top end challenging for the league and cup titles, and in Europe, it's far better for the league. And I wish Atalanta had won the Champions League in 2020 because that really would have summed up the changing of the guard. I think. No, I think they will. I think they will. I think they will get thrown out of Serie A because what people don't realise is the Italian government and the legal system are very strict on corruption. When you get caught, you are in trouble. Um, they've got very strict tax laws, very, very strict tax laws in Italy. I was having this discussion with my mum actually before I did the live stream because we've got a relative who's um, doing some dodgy tax affairs. But they are very, very strict. Very strict. They've got very strict anti-corruption laws, very, very strict anti-mafia laws, which basically is basic money laundering. And the fact that Juve are under investigation for some interest in accounting, no, something will happen of it. UEFA can't stand by, Serie A can't stand by. It's their public image, and the Italian football still recovering from the Calciopoli scandal of 2006. So, um, I think they're in trouble, big trouble. Juve or AC Milan? Who's bigger? Juve have got the biggest fan base in Italian football. They're the bigger club. They're the more successful club historically. Although AC Milan have got more success in European club football, but Juve is the bigger club. How long do you think Novak Djokovic has at the top? A year or two. I don't think he's got much long left at the top. He has recurring injury problems with the same injuries with his elbow and his serving arm. Same with Lau and Federer and Murray. Their time is coming to an end. A new dawn is coming with tennis, which is going to be more open. You would think so, but you would think so. But I think this time, because the last time multiple clubs were involved, this time it's them on a standalone. And the competition watchdog, which is like we have competition watchdogs here in industry, the national competition watchdog that makes sure when it comes to businesses adhering to strict practices has got involved, which is a governmental body. It's not Serie A going, you've done some dodgy accounting. This is a separate outside the box independent body have caught them, um, yeah, they're in trouble. Favorite rugby league jersey? Ooh, ooh. I like the Warrington Wolves jersey. The Sheffield Eagles jersey of '96 um, is an iconic jersey from that '96 Challenge Cup win. The London Broncos original jersey is cult status, but it's not a rugby league jersey for design, but it is cult status. Just multicolored. What? Uh, what? So the old London Broncos jerseys, that's a rugby league jersey. Um, but I would say I've got an overall favourite. Obviously, I'm a Canberra Raiders fan and a London Broncos fan, but the Canberra Milk 1994 jersey, I like that. That is iconic and damn near impossible to find in perfect condition these days. Like you'd have to find it second hand. It's going to be damaged, but that's an iconic jersey. I like what they've done with bringing back the Canberra Milk sponsorship. I do. I didn't like the Huawei sponsorship in the last few years. So the Canberra jersey is quite a nice jersey. I have to admit. Uh, there are some other good ones. I think. Balmain Tigers, not the West Tigers. Balmain Tigers is quite an iconic jersey as well with the Philips sponsorship, the black B and the gold. Uh, the Magpies jersey as well is another one. Oh dear, you thought it was a rhino. Oh. I think the nickname would have given it away. Just a smidge. Just a smidge. But yeah, you do learn something new every day. Study your Roman history. You'll understand why they're called the Wolves, and why they have SPQR in their logo as well. It's, it's 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 a very historical club. Uh, I do like the Roma jerseys, though. I do like them. Um, Favorite rugby league jersey, I think, would have to be the Raiders simply because of my fandom for them. But there are some other jerseys I like. I like the Parramatta jerseys. I do like Eagles jerseys. Um, my favourite one being the Pertec jerseys, 2016. I like that jersey. I do like that jersey a lot. Um, I don't like the Penrith ones. Parramatta. I do like the Roosters Anzac jersey from this season, which is quite nice. I always love the Indigenous round jerseys because they're just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Brilliant designs. They change every year. Some are a little bit iffy the last couple of years, but I do like the Indigenous round jerseys. They are absolutely stunning. They change every year. They are beautiful. I love the artwork. I love the reason behind them. The Aboriginal culture coming out. Um, they are stunning, stunning. I love the Aboriginal round jerseys. Beautiful, beautiful. They're pieces of art, really. It's a shame they get ripped to pieces in the match. But I like the Indigenous round jerseys. They're so hard to get hold of, though. So expensive. Um, and I think the Canberra one this year was not great, like our season. What other rugby league jerseys do I like? I'm gonna have to think on that one. Obviously, the Roosters and the Rabbitohs jerseys are iconic for the history they have within the sport. Um, I like the Titans jersey as well. Do I like Juve's history? It's a very interesting history, and I can do a history video on Juventus and their formation. The amount of trophies they've won, um, the history of the old lady. Absolutely, I can do a history on Juventus. It's an amazing history, but AC Milan and Inter and Fiorentina and almost any club that's played in Serie A, I can do a history of it. The history of Italian club football is really amazing, absolutely amazing. Um, I could spend all day reading up on those clubs, all day, and I don't have all day because I've got to be up for work in 6 hours. Got to be up for work in 6, 7 hours. So I'm going to have to call it a night. Thank you very, very much for all your questions and all the comments. Really appreciate it. we ended up talking about jersey designs, which is actually a nice change from talking about scandal in sport or, um, you know, oh yeah, scandal in sport. Really, it's a nice change when we're discussing favorite jerseys, of sports and the best jerseys to get if you want to get a replica. Do you get an authentic or fanatics? If you're willing to spend the money, get an authentic. If I will, let's have a look. I think it's fucked that the fans and players have to suffer for what the owners have to do or have done. Absolutely, but sometimes players are also involved in corrupt dealings. So bear that in mind. But it's always the fans that suffer, always. And I will finish on this point. It is really interesting that the Premier League is, as not as a whole, but a proportion of Premier League clubs are trying to resist the 47-point plan to bring in an independent regulator and are resisting on several key points that are important, um, which is going to, yeah, lead to further discontent amongst the fan base and uh, further issues down the line. But anyway, thank you very, very much for all your questions this evening. I like the fact that we ended up pretty much talking about sports jerseys and, you know, favourite jerseys and collectible jerseys. But also, as a leaving point, if you are going to go online or to a club shop, if you're willing to spend the extra money, get yourself an authentic. If you are on a budget, Fanatics isn't bad. Their sizing is different, their quality is not as good, but they are cheaper, they are more affordable. Um, but your best bet, if you are not going to go into the club store, go online. If you go on certain websites like the NHL or NRL website, it will tell you if it's an authentic or it's a Fanatics version. Um, and therefore you won't be disappointed. They are very, very clear. You're less likely to get a fake. So if you are trying to find a second-hand jersey on eBay, you're going to find a lot of fakes out there. You are going to get dupes. You're going to have issues sending it back. Always go to the. I always if suggest to people the main websites will do discounts, so you will be able to collect your jerseys if you wanted to build a jersey collection of multiple sports. The NHL website is brilliant because it will tell you if it's an authentic or it's a Fanatics. And yes, it is more expensive to buy an authentic, but it is worth it. If, however, you are on a budget, Fanatics is not the end of the world, and their youth sizes are pretty good. If it's a Fanatics youth, they actually are better quality than the adults. So that's my, you know, advice. If you want to buy sports jerseys online, if you can get to a club shop, fair play to you. You'll probably get a better selection of merchandise. And you'd be more likely to get every single player's name on the back, kind of, for the names jerseys. Whereas online, they're sometimes limited in the players that you can get the name jersey of. So again, choice can be limited, but it is what it is. Jersey collection has become very, very expensive. It's become very, very popular in the last 5-10 years. Partly in the fact that a lot of YouTubers are doing it, and therefore it's inspired people to collect jerseys. I have a jersey collection. It's kind of fun. I haven't collected for a couple of years, for about 3 years. I intend to add to my collection in the next couple of years or so, increase the collection that I have of jerseys. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for all your questions tonight. It's been a really good live stream. Really appreciate it. No spam or trolls this evening, which is always a good sign. So you guys who are moderators, you haven't had to moderate this time, which is really nice. Really appreciate all your questions as always, and I'll have some more videos for you tomorrow in regards to the FA Cup draw and Bournemouth versus Northern City, which will be a fun non-league tie in the FA Cup. It's always fun when you've got two non-league sides going head to head. It will be a really interesting, fun game, hopefully high scoring as well and very entertaining. So for now, good night and thank you very much. Right.